Chapter 1869. You're right in general. Wang Feng smiled. But you don't know the full story. Do you know about the 10,000 Dragons universe? Yan Mengyao pondered for a moment and nodded. There is a brief introduction in my memory. This 10,000 Dragons universe seems to be a universe dominated by the dragon race. The Yama Master only gave me this much information. This 10,000 Dragons universe is quite special. Wang Feng said slowly. The dragon god of the Douluo divine world came from this 10,000 Dragons universe. The 10,000 Dragons Pearl is the reason why the dragon god realm is able to develop to this state. And this 10,000 Dragons Pearl came from the 10,000 Dragons universe. Yan Mengyao nodded. But what's so special about it? Yan Mengyao was puzzled. The Yama Master doesn't know much about this 10,000 Dragons universe, Wang Feng smiled. He slowly took out a fragment with his right hand. This fragment is… Yan Mengyao seemed to realize something. This fragment was a treasure that the South Profound Celestial Sovereign had given to him. Later, he said that it was one of the 3 chaos treasures of the primitive world. It was very powerful. It's just that it's damaged, and it's badly damaged, but Yan Mengyao didn't feel that it was that powerful, could it be? Yan Mengyao's eyes lit up. In the next moment, Wang Feng suddenly placed the 10,000 Dragons Pearl in the broken groove of the fragment. In an instant, the fragment burst out with a fierce light. Brilliant wills spread out from the fragments like divine runes of the universe. However, in the blink of an eye, the palm-sized fragment had actually gained a little more at the edge of its shattering. This… Yan Mengyao's mouth opened slightly. This 10,000 Dragons Pearl came from the 10,000 Dragons universe. Wang Feng's eyes were deep. This 10,000 Dragons Pearl given by the 10,000 Dragons universe can change the genes of the dragon race in the dragon god realm. What's interesting is that it is somewhat similar to the dragon race your master created based on the original form of the dragon race in the primitive world. This 10,000 Dragons Pearl and the 10,000 Dragons universe seem to be related to the primitive world. The 10,000 Dragons Pearl contains some special power of the Great Tao. And this broken creation jade disc itself contains the 3,000 Great Taos of the primitive world. Wang Feng closed his eyes. Now that this fragment has received some power of the Great Tao, it can recover. Of course, it's just a little. In fact, when he was deducing and investigating those giant dragons, he had been very careful. Wang Feng had a vague feeling that the 10,000 Dragons universe might be related to the primitive universe. In addition to the fragment of the good fortune jade disc that he had obtained previously, Wang Feng had some guesses. After obtaining the creation jade butterfly fragment, Wang Feng had already tried to repair it. It was impossible to do the same as when he cultivated the Chaos Green Lotus and the Penguac. This was because even though the primal Chaos Green Lotus was incomplete, it lacked a true soul. The power it contained was not lacking. It was only because his true soul was missing that those abilities and forms could not be formed. It was the same for the Penguacs. The will to split open the heavens was hidden in the incomplete true soul. Once the restoration was complete, he would be able to obtain it. The good fortune jade disc was relatively unique. Its true soul was not missing. Instead, everything was missing. This included the power of the 3,000 Great Taos of the primitive universe. Everything was true. It was just a fragment, a broken fragment. Wang Feng was certain that there were still quite a number of such fragments. Therefore, it was not the only one. The power of the Great Taos inside naturally dissipated with the fragments. However, the 10,000 Dragons Pearl contained some power of the Great Taos. The 10,000 Dragons universe, Wang Feng muttered slowly. It seemed that after the War of the Gods, or even before the War of the Gods, he had to find time to take a look. Yan Mengyao bent over and leaned against Wang Feng's palm, looking at the creation jade disc at a close distance. Master, is this thing still useful to you? The power of the Great Taos. Yan Mengyao muttered, What power of the great Daos is it? The power of the great Daos of the primitive universe is naturally the origin of the universe, Wang Feng said indifferently. In the universe, there are countless great Daos and countless origins. As for the 3,000 great Daos in the creation jade disk, the so-called 3,000 great Daos are just imaginary numbers. In fact, it refers to infinite great Daos. As for the exact number, I don't know. However, the creation jade disk is a chaos treasure from the beginning of the primitive universe. The 3,000 great Daos contained in it refer to the most primitive 3,000 great Daos in that universe. Speaking of this, Wang Feng paused. It can point to the supreme great Daos of the universe. In short, the 3,000 great Daos in the creation jade disk contain the universe's will that can be touched. Yan Mengyao immediately understood. It can be said that the universe's will, that the universe's life forms that transcended the initial cycle in the primitive universe have basically comprehended and merged from the 3,000 great Daos of the creation jade disk. So, hearing this, Yan Mengyao asked tentatively, if you repair the creation jade disk, Master, you can have more universe's will? In theory, it's not wrong. Wang Feng nodded. But in reality it was naturally very difficult. The universe's will was not something that could be obtained casually. Even in a universe as strong as the deity system, most of the heavenly gods still relied on the projection of their will. They were not the true universe's will. Those who truly had the universe's will were absolutely the best among the heavenly gods. Even the supreme gods, it was the same for the universe's will. Not to mention 2 or more universes' wills. Just the amount of source energy required was enough to stump them. The creation jade disk was the same. There were countless great Daos in it. It was unknown where they were scattered. When the primitive universe was destroyed, the 3 primal chaos treasures disappeared and shattered. The primal chaos lotus and Pengu axe were still fine. The creation jade disk was shattered into countless great Tao fragments, but they might not all be like these fragments. For example, the myriad dragon pearl contained the power of a great Tao, but compared to the entire creation jade disk, it was almost negligible. The current restoration was only able to make the shard breathe a little bit. It was unknown how far away it was from a true repair, not to mention its effect. Fortunately, there was this myriad dragon universe. Wang Feng was certain that there were still great Daos scattered from the creation jade disk in the myriad dragon universe. Since the myriad dragon universe was able to bestow the myriad dragon pearl to a mere dragon god realm, there must be many myriad dragon pearls formed from the power of a great Tao. So, from this point of view, the value of this item is extremely high. Wang Feng smiled as he looked at the information in the chat group. The value of the information contained within is immeasurable. It is only right to give Han Li so many points. Chapter 1870. Several days later. The entire Dragon God realm shook violently after the 10,000 dragon pearl disappeared. So this is the end of the Dragon God realm? Long Xie clicked his tongue in wonder as he stood on top of a towering mountain peak and gazed at the Dragon God realm from afar. Judging from the density of the spirit energy here, that should be the case. Tang San closed his eyes and sensed the changes in the energy of heaven and earth. They didn't know about the 10,000 dragon pearl before this. It was the emperor with the surname Chao who told them about it. Speaking of which, he felt a little ashamed. That emperor's allies aren't simple. Long Xie clicked his tongue. We've been following them for the past few days, and it's like a hurricane sweeping through all the dragon caves in the Dragon God realm. A dragon cave was actually a city where a giant dragon resided. However, those cities were too big, so they thought it was more appropriate to call them dragon caves. Since the 10,000 dragon pearl was given to us by the 10,000 dragons cosmos, it can't be a simple treasure. The change in the energy density of the Dragon God realm proves that the Emperor's words are true. Tang San frowned slightly. Without the 10,000 dragon pearl, the Dragon God realm has lost its source. It seems like a good thing. What are you worried about, Tang-san? Long Xie asked. Is it the 10,000 dragons cosmos? That's right. Tang-san placed the Azura blood sword in front of him. The 10,000 dragon pearl has been stolen, but it's a divine item from the 10,000 dragons cosmos. How can they just sit back and watch? It's very likely that the 10,000 dragons cosmos will send their own experts here. This isn't good news for them. Long Xie scratched his head. But don't they have an ancestor god behind them? What are you worried about? These two big shots use the Dragon God realm as their playground. It's not like the Douluo God realm will suffer any harm if they fight. If Boss is here, he might be plotting something in secret already. Why are you still scowling here? That's true, given Brother Feng's temperament. Tang-san nodded in agreement. However, what I'm saying is that the Dragon God realm is the Dragon God realm's enemy. The Dragon God realm is our enemy, so we can help them depending on the situation. That makes sense. Long Xie pondered for a moment. At this moment, several figures flew over from afar. Everyone, we will be heading to Dragon City to meet up with my ally. Is there anything else? Cao Cao asked with a smile. Li Feiyu's theft of the 10,000 dragon pearl was equivalent to weakening the Dragon God realm imperceptibly. Naturally, this greatly reduced the danger they faced in the Dragon God realm, and the difficulty of the activity. Next, the points naturally flowed into his account like water. It would be beneficial to every member of the group. Long Xie and Tang-san looked at each other and voiced their concerns. After listening to them, Cao Cao pondered for a moment and said, "What the two of you said is indeed something we did not think of. However, just how strong was the 10,000 dragons universe? This is an unknown. Prime Minister, this is not an unknown factor. That 10,000 dragon pearl can change the strength of the dragon race in the entire Dragon God realm. It can even change the level of this realm. It's no ordinary treasure. The 10,000 dragons cosmos was able to take out such a treasure. At the very least, they are much stronger than us and our allies." The strategist paused for a moment. Now that the 10,000 dragon pearl has been lost in the Dragon God realm, the Dragon Monarch of the Dragon God realm will definitely report this matter to the 10,000 dragons universe. It is very likely that the 10,000 dragons universe has already sent experts over. Your Majesty, before your ally stole the pearl, I wanted to say this. Once the 10,000 dragon pearl is stolen, the difficulty of our attack will decrease. The strength of these giant dragons will also decrease greatly. However, we will definitely provoke stronger enemies, unless the Ancestor God personally intervenes. But the Ancestor God will not personally participate in this activity. The strategist stopped speaking at this point. Cao Cao began to think. At this moment, he could only see the distant horizon. A wisp of azure light stretched across the entire sky, as if it had split the sky into two. Roar! A terrifying dragon roar came from where the streak of light had split the sky. Cao Cao abruptly covered his ears and looked forward with a bit of shock in his eyes. What is that? The dragon roar seemed to be able to reach the depths of one's soul. Waves of sound came and turned into a huge tsunami-like force that engulfed everything. Cao Cao and the others, who were standing on the mountain peak, couldn't even stabilize themselves under the pressure of this huge wave of air. This isn't good. Cao Cao, who flew out, exploded with a burst of golden light in midair. His body was covered in layers of destructive golden light. He was barely able to resist it, at the same time. In a corner outside Dragon City. What the hell is this? Hanli was like a catkin in the wind. This huge wave of air almost killed him. Fortunately, he had exchanged for the Sky Tortoise divine armor that was worth tens of thousands of points from the event's prize pool in time. He hurriedly put it on and barely managed to withstand it. He didn't even have time to investigate the other functions of this divine armor that was worth tens of thousands of points. He looked at the blue light in the sky from the corner of his eyes as he quickly flew away. But in the next moment, Hanli felt as if the space around him had frozen. There was no longer any wind. He looked down and saw that the scenery around him had become inanimate. It was motionless. He was greatly astonished. In the sky, a dragon's roar that caused the entire dragon god realm to tremble sounded. A huge dragon of 5-colored divine light flew out from the blue light that split open the sky. No, I have to quickly escape from here. Hanli broke out in a cold sweat. He had over 1,000,000 points now. There was bound to be a way. It's a pity that the event's prize pool doesn't have anything that can directly cause great damage. Otherwise, I would be able to exchange my points for something that could directly destroy Dragon City. Hanli thought to himself. The items in the event's prize pool that were worth over 1,000,000 points were all very terrifying. Hanli glanced at them and found that he couldn't directly use most of them. For example, Origin Power. Even if he exchanged for it, he couldn't use it. His cultivation was too low. Even if he had over 100,000 points, it would be difficult to use useful cultivation techniques, divine abilities, and treasures. He could only use those one-time consumable treasures because they had no limit. But they could only be used once. It wasn't worth it. Furthermore, there weren't any items in the prize pool that could directly cause great damage. It would be great if there were such items, Hanli sighed. He reckoned that even if there were, they would only be single-use items. I can only run now. But it seems that even the space around me has been sealed. Hanli glanced at the 5-colored divine dragon that descended from the sky. With just a glance, Hanli's mind was shaken and he felt dizzy. And this was under the condition that he was wearing the divine armor that could block most of the pressure. I'm afraid I can escape, Hanli broke out in a cold sweat. Chapter 1871. Hanli broke out in a cold sweat. The cycle concealment effect had already disappeared. That item was extremely valuable, and there was a limit to exchange. He could only exchange for it once. Hanli could actually find several other treasures with similar effects to the cycle concealment effect. However, those weren't one-time use items, and their value was even higher. They were permanent supreme treasures. But he couldn't use them. Those treasures required a certain amount of strength. They weren't things he could use as a golden core cultivator. At the same time, in the chat group, following the sudden upheaval in the Dragon God realm, Fanyi, damn, what's going on? Did you guys feel it? I'm at old brother Ing Zheng's place and I can feel an extremely powerful aura in this valley. What is this? Tu Shi Ancient Emperor Jade. Big brother Xiao Yan and I just came out of the cave and we were forced back by this aura. We also saw a shadow in the distance. Is it from Dragon City? Li Feiyu, what happened? Eternal Peace Pawn Shop's worker. I just stole the dragon egg. I was about to say that I should run away first, but I was inexplicably stopped by this terrifying aura. Then the 2 huge dragons returned. Oh no. Brothers, I don't think I'll live for long this time. Ghostly. I'm afraid something happened at Dragon City. The myriad dragon pearl was stolen. It's not that simple. Little worker, if you have any points left, quickly use them and escape. I should be very close to your place. When the time comes, we can team up. Eternal Peace Pawn Shop's worker. Big brother Ghostly, quickly come and help me. No one can betray me. Everyone, the situation isn't good. According to our speculations and the God King's suggestion, the myriad dragon pearl was stolen by little brother Feiyu. However, the myriad dragon pearl is too important to the dragon god realm. Furthermore, it was given to the dragon monarch by the myriad dragons cosmos. Now that the myriad dragon pearl has been stolen, the dragon monarch must have reported this matter to the myriad dragons cosmos. If I'm not mistaken, the aura you're sensing right now should belong to a powerhouse from the 10,000 dragons cosmos. Chow Chow's words immediately shocked everyone in the group. They could feel how powerful the aura was. The myriad dragons cosmos. They didn't understand. Since such a powerful treasure like the 10,000 dragon pearl came from the 10,000 dragon cosmos, it meant that the 10,000 dragon cosmos was not simple. Fan Yi, does this mean that the difficulty of our event dungeon has increased? Everyone, to she ancient Emperor Jade, it should have leveled up after the 10,000 dragon pearl was stolen. I feel like the difficulty should have dropped from hard to normal. Now it should be hell mode, right? Isn't it a little excessive? Great Ancestor God, are you there? Fan Yi, little you, can't you be a little more confident? Why would he call the Ancestor God when he encountered a little difficulty? What a good-for-nothing. No one can betray me. Fan Yi is right. We can't rely on the Ancestor God for everything. We are the Ancestor God's believers. If we encounter any difficulties, we should try to solve them ourselves. We can't just look for the Ancestor God whenever we encounter a slightly stronger enemy. At this moment, Han Li went online. Ding. Li Feiyu has uploaded a video. Please download it and watch it. Li Feiyu said, everyone, the situation is not good. I'm currently near Dragon City. But I don't know if you can feel it. The space here has been sealed. In the sky above Dragon City, there is a huge dragon covered in 5-colored divine light. I don't know where it came from. Its aura is too terrifying. I feel like my soul is about to collapse just by looking at it. Currently, I can find several treasures that can allow me to escape from here. However, even if I exchange for these treasures, with my current strength, I can't use them at all. What should I do now? You can take a look at the video. It was taken from my first-person perspective. You should be able to feel it more directly. Everyone immediately downloaded it. After a few seconds, Fan Yi, Ancestor God, Great Ancestor God. Everyone, to she ancient Emperor Jade, Fan Yi, didn't you say before Shao Suner could finish her words? Fan Yi immediately sent a message. Don't speak. Didn't you see the video? That huge dragon covered in 5-colored divine light is on the same level. The entire world has been sealed. Quickly check if your teleportation gate is still there. F*CK, there's no need to check. Old brother Ing Zheng's teleportation gate has already been sealed. It must have been sealed by that 5-colored divine dragon. We can't even go back now. Everyone. Just as Yi Fan finished speaking, the others had also realized it. The teleportation gate was bound to them. Of course, they couldn't return as they wished. However, if they wanted to forcefully leave, for example, giving up on this event, they could do so. Otherwise, they could only return after the event ended. However, they couldn't summon their teleportation gate now. This meant that they couldn't forcefully leave. This was too King weird. Fan Ye's instant cowardice made everyone unable to hold back their laughter. However, they also felt a chill in their hearts. This wasn't a joke. The world cannot betray me. Little brother Feiyu, you said that you can exchange for a treasure to leave this place. Then, is there such a powerful treasure that can destroy that 5-colored divine dragon? Perhaps we can give it a try. Cao Cao's words immediately stunned everyone. Fan Yi, old brother Cao, you are too daring. That 5-colored divine dragon shouldn't be the same as us. How is it possible? Even if there is such a treasure, we can't use it at all. The world cannot betray me. The Ancestor God hasn't replied yet. This means that we can deal with that 5-colored divine dragon. Otherwise, the Ancestor God wouldn't have remained silent. The Ancestor God is benevolent and kind to us believers. He won't watch us die. As long as he doesn't say anything, it means that we can break out of this situation. It's also possible that this is the Ancestor God's arrangement. He is here to train us. Otherwise, he wouldn't have reminded little brother Feiyu to steal the 10,000 dragons pearl. Think about it. Isn't that the case? If we can work together to kill that 5-colored divine dragon from the 10,000 dragons universe, we won't let down our status as the Ancestor God's believers. We can't embarrass the ancestor god. When everyone heard this, they felt that this made some sense. Li Feiyu. Now that you mention it, I feel that it is very possible. Wait, let me see. With my current points, let me think. Perhaps we can give it a try. At the level of 500,000 points, there are many powerful treasures that can destroy the world. But how should we gather them now? This is a problem. Just as the chat group was in a heated discussion. Dragon City, Dragon Palace. The Golden Dragon King, no, the Dragon Emperor of the Dragon God Realm, had transformed into a half-human half-dragon form. He had a cautious expression as he half-knelt in the void. Behind him, all the Dragon Clan powerhouses in the Dragon Palace were doing the same. For the Dragon Emperor to welcome them in such a manner, trash. Golden Dragon King, you have the 10,000 Dragons Pearl bestowed by the Emperor of the Mystic Dragon Emperor. You are much stronger than the true dragon in your previous life. How could you allow the 10,000 Dragons Pearl to be stolen? In the sky, the 5-colored divine dragon spoke in a cold dragon language. The 10,000 Dragons Pearl is the most precious treasure of the 10,000 Dragons universe. If it weren't for your talent, you wouldn't even have the right to meet the Emperor of the Mystic Dragon Emperor. Now that the 10,000 Dragons Pearl has been stolen, even if you were to be cut into pieces, it wouldn't be enough. The 5-colored divine dragon's voice became even colder. The Golden Dragon King below did not dare to say a word. After a while, the 5-colored divine dragon's voice softened a little. The Golden Dragon King hurriedly said, Supreme Dragon God, I know that the theft of the 10,000 Dragons Pearl is a serious crime. However, I really don't understand why the 10,000 Dragons Pearl was stolen. After thinking about it, the only possibility is that the powerhouses of the Dragon God Realm are secretly behind this. Otherwise, I wouldn't have noticed anything from the beginning to the end. Chapter 1872. The Ancestral Realm. Wang Feng slowly opened his eyes. A fragment floated in front of him. The creation jade disk had absorbed all the great Tao energy in the 10,000 Dragons Pearl. But Wang Feng still needed to comprehend some of the key points. 10,000 Dragons Pearl, Wang Feng said slowly. Although there were only a few wisps of great Tao energy, it could activate some of the creation jade disk's abilities. It had yet to give birth to a complete great Tao. But the creation jade disk was one of the 3 chaos treasures of the primitive universe. A chaos treasure is indeed a chaos treasure. A thoughtful smile appeared on Wang Feng's face. Its current abilities were monotonous. With those wisps of great Tao energy, it was like a blackout city being injected with electricity for the first time. Next, Wang Feng could use the good fortune jade disk to sense the endless power of the great Tao. Although the primitive universe had been destroyed, even the chaos treasures had been destroyed. But the 3,000 great Taos contained in them would not disappear. They would just dissipate. They would disappear among the countless universes. The karma of the universe is really wonderful. Wang Feng closed his eyes and pondered for a few seconds. When he obtained the good fortune jade disk, he thought that it would take a long time to restore it. But he did not expect to encounter the Dragon God Realm. And he got the 10,000 Dragons Pearl. And there were a few wisps of great Tao energy in the 10,000 Dragons Pearl. That was why the creation jade disk could be activated. Although the origin of the creation jade disk was related to the god of the divine system universe, thinking of this, Wang Fengxin's heart skipped a beat. At this moment, Yan Mingyao's voice suddenly came. Master, the situation is not good. The 10,000 Dragons Pearl has been stolen. The 10,000 Dragons universe seems to have sent experts. The 10,000 Dragons universe sent experts? Wang Feng paused and waved his hand. It's expected. If they don't send experts, I won't know the location of the 10,000 Dragons universe. Yan Mengyao was stunned. Since they are here, let's capture them and ask for the location of the 10,000 Dragons universe. Let's see what's going on in this universe. Wang Feng said lightly. You mean you want to take action? Yan Mengyao asked carefully. Me? Wang Feng couldn't help but laugh. Now, the races in the ancestral realm are growing stronger and stronger. Those children of destiny are starting to look like towering trees. The dragon sent by the 10,000 dragons cosmos is at most a heavenly god. Unless this member of the dragon race has a true universe-level willpower and passed the origin wheel calamity. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had to do anything. Besides, dragons, the ones your master created, are dragons with the purest bloodlines in the primitive universe. Why do you need me, your master, to do it? Just as Wang Feng finished speaking, his mind suddenly stirred. Li Feiyu has spent 800,000 points to exchange for a set of god-slaying martial arts. A crisp voice rang in the ears of Yan Mengyao and Wang Feng. Look, aren't they quite good at it? Wang Feng laughed. Wang Feng naturally knew about the items in the event prize pool dungeon. How extravagant! Yan Mengyao ridiculed. The god-slaying martial art is an exclusive system that master created by imitating the eternal god-slaying martial art. That thing is something that only demon gods of the dark demon world are barely capable of using. How would they be able to use it? They can't even control the power of the origin. I'm really impressed. That's right. This god-slaying martial art was created by Wang Feng when he placed it in the event prize pool. Wang Feng had all the data of the god-slaying martial art of the dark demon world and the void engine of the supergodly universe. If he wanted to create it, he just needed materials. And materials were not lacking in the dark demon world. Even in the supergodly universe, Wang Feng did not lack materials. However, a set of weapons of this level could not be used by ordinary people at all. Only powerhouses at the level of godly kings or demon gods could unleash their greatest power after a long period of practice. The reason was very simple. A weapon of this level, even if it was activated, required the power of the origin, not to mention the continuous flow of energy. If it was used well, even the heavenly gods of the divine system universe, even if they were not particularly strong, could fight with them. Who said there's no origin? Wang Feng laughed. Doesn't Jing Tian have the origin? If it's activated with Jing Tian's origin and gathered all the power of the others, it's not a problem to activate the god-slaying martial art temporarily. It's possible to gather everyone's power and defeat the five-colored divine dragon. They are all children of destiny, their intelligence is not low. I didn't put those one-time destructive treasures in the prize pool because I want to see what they will do when they encounter such an enemy far beyond their imagination. They are now in a state of rapid growth. After all, they still need some life and death tempering. Otherwise, although they can become the geniuses of a world in the end, it will be difficult for them to go on for a long time. Yan Mengyao nodded. So, for now we just need to watch. If it really doesn't work, let the dragons in the ancestral realm take care of it. Dragon God Realm, Dragon Palace. Stop talking. The five-colored divine dragon in the sky exuded an aura that seemed to be able to destroy the entire Dragon God Realm. Don't find excuses for your incompetence. Even if there is an expert who surpasses the Dragon God Realm, it is your incompetence. Why did your Dragon God Realm provoke an expert? Don't you know? How long has it been since the 10,000 Dragon Pearl was given to you? If you can develop steadily for a few hundred years, your strength will not be too far away from my level. At that time, even if there is an expert who surpasses the Dragon God Realm, you won't be like this. You don't even know how the 10,000 Dragon Pearl was stolen. Isn't it because you rashly started a war with the Douluo Divine Realm? The roars of the five-colored divine dragons were like bolts of lightning that rang out in the Golden Dragon King's ears. The Golden Dragon King cursed in his heart. He knew that the 10,000 dragons cosmos would know everything about the Dragon God Realm. When they gave the 10,000 Dragon Pearl, they must have been monitoring the Dragon God Realm. Otherwise, How would they know that the Dragon God realm had sent a few giant dragons to the Douluo divine realm to start a war? The war hasn't even started yet. It wasn't easy for me to escape from the dark demon realm. I found the Dragon God realm, and I even became the king of the Dragon God realm after much difficulty. I even obtained the myriad dragon pearl. That Douluo God realm is nothing to me. They imprisoned me for so many years. If I can't avenge my past humiliation, then what's the point of being king? The Golden Dragon King thought. Of course, he couldn't say what was in his heart. He could only brace himself and say, "Venerable Dragon God, I know about the Douluo divine realm. I have been there for countless years. I know the strength of that divine realm. In fact, it is extremely weak. Also, when I was imprisoned in the dark demon realm, a war broke out between the two realms and several divine kings disappeared. Currently, there is only one divine king, Tang-san." Chapter 1873. It's impossible for him to be a match for our Dragon God realm. Therefore, it's not because I provoked the Douluo divine realm that an expert who surpasses the Dragon God realm appeared. It's definitely an accident. The Golden Dragon King could clearly tell that the Venerable Dragon God was blaming him for provoking the Douluo divine realm, which was why he had attracted an enemy that the Dragon God realm could not deal with. What an idiot, however! The five-colored divine dragon immediately let out a furious roar. When the profound Dragon Emperor left, he clearly said that he would let you control the 10,000 Dragon Pearl and quietly develop the Dragon God realm for several hundred years. When the time comes, listen to his orders and you will definitely be of great use. Do you really think that the mystic Dragon Emperor's words are just for show? There's a native heavenly god in the Douluo divine realm, and he's currently engaged in a divine battle with another extremely powerful universe. No matter how weak the backing of the Douluo divine realm is, it's still beyond your imagination. Our 10,000 Dragons cosmos has already expressed our stance, and we won't interfere with each other. Now that you've provoked the Douluo divine world, that native heavenly god of the divine system cosmos will definitely turn his attention to the Dragon God realm. If he notices, then our myriad dragons cosmos will be considered to have intervened in this battle. Even if that native heavenly god is nothing to the 10,000 dragons universe, he's still a heavenly god. However, the mystic Dragon Emperor will never tolerate being in the same boat as the god system's universe. Once he changes his stance, do you know how many battles will be involved? Forget it, speaking so much to a disobedient idiot like you is really useless. The five-colored divine dragon seemed to be mentally exhausted. He didn't want to talk about it anymore. The Golden Dragon King was a little confused. How could he possibly know about the godly system's universe, the indigenous heavenly gods, and the godly wars? He didn't know any of these things. Who would have known that the mystic dragon monarch's orders were so complicated? He asked with trepidation, "Then, what should we do next?" The five-colored divine dragon's body froze, and its golden eyes emitted a strong killing intent. What's next is naturally to nip the matter in the bud. After that, we'll immediately abandon the Dragon God realm and leave. As she spoke, the five-colored divine dragon's eyes swept across the entire Dragon God realm as if she was sensing something. At the same time, in another place, in a valley, Ing Zheng and Yi Fan stood at the entrance of a mountain, waiting quietly. A moment later, a group of Gulf Stream troops came from afar. Their speed was extremely fast, like the torrential flow of a great river, rapidly moving in their direction. "He's here, Brother Chao is here. In addition to Brother Geely and that last Xiao Yu. Now all we need is a waiter," Yi Fan shouted in a clear voice. As soon as he finished speaking, in the distance, a figure was moving rapidly through the clouds, leaving behind a rainbow-colored tassel. In the blink of an eye, he landed in front of them. "Young master is here. Is everyone here?" The figure laughed heartily. He looked at Yi Fan and Ing Zheng with excitement. He pointed at Yi Fan and said, "You're Fan Yi, right? This should be the big brother who borrowed another 10,000 years from the heavens? As expected, your aura is extraordinary. TSK, Fan Yi, you are much weaker. You feel about the same as me." "Damn, little buddy, you're really arrogant," Yi Fan scolded with a smile. "Don't think that you can be arrogant just because the ancestor god gave you the origin source." Jing Tian chuckled. This was the first time they met in the group. Although the reason was to deal with a strong enemy and there wasn't the atmosphere of a meetup, they had always been communicating in the group. In the end, they were still a little excited. "Oh right, when will Brother Feiyu arrive? Now we just lack his 1 million plus points." Jing Tian heaved a long sigh of relief. They had already confirmed the plan in the group. They had even exchanged for the item. He might not be able to come. Ing Zheng's gaze was solemn. Because he is at the border of Dragon City, there is a long distance between him and us. In addition, the pressure over there is too terrifying. Jing Tian was slightly stunned. That item, the item he exchanged for, has been temporarily given to Fan Yi in the group. After he uses it, he will return it to him. Ing Zheng slowly said, "So, next we need to work together and head to Dragon City to bring Feiyu back. Also, we need to defeat that 5-colored divine dragon." Jing Tian nodded slightly. Li Feiyu was trapped in the surroundings of Dragon City. But his points were still there. He directly exchanged for the item from the event's prize pool and then gave it to Fan Yi through the group chat. Then, Fan Yi took it out from the group chat. "Where's the item?" Jing Tian asked. "This god-slaying weapon is worth 800,000 points. When I came here, I kept thinking about what it is," Yi Fan chuckled. "It's a very powerful item. Let's go. Since we are here, let's go and take a look." After saying that, Yi Fan brought Jing Tian and walked into the valley. In the depths of the valley, Ing Zheng had already prepared an empty space. Jing Tian passed through the medicinal forest and the sea of flowers. After a short while, he arrived at the empty space. What entered his eyes was a pitch-black round ball that emitted a black metallic luster. It looked ordinary. "Just this?" Jing Tian was stunned. "This is the god-slaying weapon? 800,000 points? It shouldn't be. It's just a palm-sized round ball." I remember that the introduction of the god-slaying weapon was extremely impressive. God-slaying weapon. The strongest god-slaying weapon below the universe level. All the gods and Buddhas in the universe can be killed. Weak ones can't control it if they don't have an origin source. Short and terrifying. They didn't know what the universe level was, but it should be an extremely distant realm. Such a powerful weapon, in the end it was just a bead? What do you know? Yi Fan sneered. To think you are a pawnshop assistant. You have no foresight at all. This thing needs to be activated. It originally belonged to Brother Feiyu. However, Li Feiyu's strength isn't enough. He doesn't have an origin source and doesn't have enough energy. Hence, he can't activate it. This thing is extremely high level. According to our guess, it might be able to change its form according to its origin source. Then Jing Tian pondered for a while. Even though I have an origin source, I'm not familiar with controlling it. I also don't have enough energy. Who says it's not enough? A few voices resounded. The ones who walked over were the other people from the chat group. Little fellow, you are underestimating us. Xiao Sun giggled. Not just us, there are 2 emperors here. Fan Yi, Brother Gui Li and us are all here. They even have an army. How can it not be enough? That's right. In truth, the energy should be enough. Gui Li smiled and said, It just depends on your origin source. Little fellow, we will be together when the time comes. Don't worry, you can give it a try first. Chow Chow said slowly. Even though this was the first time they had met. However, the current situation was urgent. They didn't even have time to get to know each other. They could only look at the big picture. It wouldn't be too late to talk about it after the crisis was resolved. Jing Tian nodded. He walked towards the bead in the middle of the empty space. Chapter 1874. As he walked, Jing Tian was still a little nervous. However, he was more excited and excited. Halfway through, Jing Tian saw many translucent lines on the ground. They extended from all directions towards the high platform, all the way to the bottom of the bead. It seemed to be some kind of formation. It should be some kind of formation that gathers energy? Jing Tian thought. He walked in front of the bead. It was the size of a palm. It was difficult to see the material with the naked eye, but the surface was suffused with an ink-black luster. He stretched out his hand, closed his eyes, and communicated with the origin in his body. This origin was given by the ancestor god, and it was a kind of sword Tao origin. However, Jing Tian had been comprehending the sword Tao origin these days, but his progress was relatively slow. After all, the power of the origin was too powerful, and the mysteries contained in it were enough for him to study for many years. However, the origin was not only the mystery, but also the embodiment of power. A powerful origin could ignore the rules of the world and cause devastating destruction. Over the past few days, Jing Tian believed that he had slightly comprehended the profundity of the sword Tao origin. This sword Tao was called Soul Slayer. It also involved some mysteries of space. It was extremely mysterious. The so-called soul was the soul, spirit, and will. The Soul Slayer sword Tao could jump out of space, pass through the physical body, and directly destroy the souls of all living beings in the heavens, causing death. Moreover, it could make the latter have no possibility of reincarnation. It was extremely domineering and evil. In the beginning, Jing Tian actually rejected it. This was because the Soul Slayer origin was too powerful, and Jing Tian was afraid that he could not control it. If he suffered a backlash, it would be terrible. Later, he gradually realized that this was the origin given by the ancestor god. Relatively speaking, it was very stable, and there was not much of a hindrance when comprehending it. His strength, on the other hand, was increasing at a rapid pace. Now, he was about to use this origin to activate the mysterious god-slaying martial art. He was facing an unprecedented enemy. Jing Tian's spirit was highly concentrated. The origin deep in his soul moved along with him. Flows of powerful origin energy began to gather in Jing Tian's palm. Suddenly, he opened his eyes, and his palm gently touched the bead in front of him. Almost at the moment when the origin power came into contact with the bead, Jing Tian felt the origin power in his body rapidly depleting. The next moment the bead began to change. Crack, 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 the energy converged like a stream of water, surrounding the bead. The light began to extend. It seemed to be changing. Jing Tian's eyes widened as the bead began to undergo a drastic change. Surrounded by the origin energy, it began to change shape and elongate at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, it had turned into a gigantic sword that was over 100 meters tall, like a mountain peak. A terrifying suction force came from the giant sword and instantly sucked Jing Tian in. The god-slaying martial art 1.0 has been activated. Receiving weak origin energy. Finalizing. According to the known origin, the god-slaying martial art will be changed to Soul Slayer god-slaying. Temporarily lacking energy. Currently unable to activate other functions. Sensing failed. Please provide sufficient energy as soon as possible. Jing Tian heard a voice in a daze. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself in a dreamlike space. In front of him was the scenery of the outside world, surrounding him. He could even see Fan Yi and the others below. Success? Jing Tian heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. He seemed to have entered the interior of the god-slaying martial art. Hearing the crisp mechanical voice, Jing Tian seemed to have understood something. The product of the ancestor god is indeed powerful. I don't understand. Let them see. Jing Tian immediately reported the current situation in the chat group. At the next moment, the energy patterns on the ground immediately lit up. Absorbing energy. 1%. 5%. Jing Tian heard this voice again. He looked around and roughly understood that this voice should be the god-slaying martial arts weapon spirit. Thinking of this, Jing Tian could completely understand. I want to ask. Jing Tian suddenly asked, is this form formed by my origin energy? Yes. Such a huge internal space can only accommodate me alone? No, it can accommodate a lot of people. But the current form can only be controlled by one person. Any other life form that enters the internal space can only provide energy but cannot control it. Hearing this, Jing Tian understood. In the chat group, Jing Tian said, everyone, quickly come in. This can accommodate all of us. Come in together. Let's go and kill that dragon. Everyone. Jing Tian explained the situation again. Everyone understood and immediately flew into the huge sword. Damn, this is the internal space of the god-slaying martial art? Yi Fan looked around. It feels like the inside of a Gundam. Interesting. Look at the interface in front. It's a bit high-end. This god-slaying martial art changes according to the origin energy. In other words, it's ever-changing? In theory, that's right. Jing Tian was a bit excited. It feels very strong. I'm only using it temporarily. I'm not the owner of this god-slaying martial art. If it's Brother Feiyu, this god-slaying martial art should exist in his body. Moreover, this god-slaying martial arts weapon spirit can also be communicated with. The internal space itself is extremely vast. It's equivalent to a small world. The most important feeling should be this weapon spirit. It's extremely intelligent. As Jing Tian said, his tone was somewhat envious. How intelligent is it? Xiao Sun asked curiously. So intelligent that it can analyze the strength of everyone in the outside world, Jing Tian said, and analyze this world. After he finished speaking, Jing Tian directly waved his hand and pulled open a huge screen in front of them. The screen was filled with densely packed stories about the dragon god realm and the analysis of the giant dragons of this realm. The changes in the surrounding energy, the aura of living beings, and all kinds of rare plants could be clearly seen at a glance. It could even sense the surrounding terrain and so on. Even the number of dragons in a radius of several 100,000 miles, the size of the cities, and the specific information were clearly marked. A weapon of this level. Jing Tian hesitated. A weapon of this level. Cao Cao's gaze was deep as he continued. If it has enough energy, it should be able to easily destroy the entire dragon god realm. And the power we have now. When everyone heard this, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. Although I haven't tested its power, Jing Tian couldn't help but shake his head. It's too scary. It's as if the moment it's activated, half of the dragon god realm will be scanned and revealed. I'm afraid that the weapon spirit will say, do you want to execute a destructive attack? Chapter 1875. Just as Jing Tian finished speaking, a voice sounded in his mind. Do you want to launch a destructive attack on this world? A powerful life force has been detected in this world. The destruction rate can only reach 60%. Jing Tian. What's wrong? Ghostly saw that Jing Tian was suddenly stunned. I said. Jing Tian stammered. I really said that, everyone. However, the god-slaying weapon seems to have sensed the aura of that 5-colored dragon. Jing Tian said. The destruction rate is only about 60%. It seems that the 5-colored dragon is still strong enough. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go to Dragon City. Xiao Sun said excitedly. This god-slaying weapon is so strong. No matter how bad it is, it can save Feiyu. If we can kill that 5-colored dragon and offer it to the ancestor god, it shouldn't be a problem for each of us to get a few 100,000 points, right? Everyone nodded. Then, let's set off? Jing Tian took a deep breath. With a thought. In an instant, the earth shook as if the entire world was trembling. However, this pitch-black giant sword still turned into a stream of light and disappeared from where it was. Target locked, Dragon City. Plane folding complete. Space jumping countdown 1, 2, 3. Destination reached. Almost as soon as his voice fell, Yi Zichen's expression changed. It had just started. In the blink of an eye, the surrounding scenery seemed to travel through time and space, turning into countless illusions. Then, what appeared in front of them was a magnificent giant city. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. We're here? Yi Fan took a deep breath. Good Lord, this thing is too strong. This is the Dragon God realm. The laws of this world are completely different from the world we live in. It's ridiculous to be able to travel through space so easily. Does this mean that this god-slaying weapon has completely broken away from the laws of the Dragon God realm? Wait, look. In the sky. When Yi Fan finished speaking, everyone had already noticed. This was Dragon City. And in the sky was that five-colored dragon. Huge could no longer be used to describe this level of life form. Just one of its scales seemed to contain an entire world, filled with a mysterious luster. It was not the first time they had seen this kind of universe-level life form. However, this was probably the first time he had seen a cosmic life form of the dragon race. In fact, most people didn't even know the concept of the universe level. There was no way to tell. It was just that they were unable to determine, but the god-slaying martial artist could. It was the ultimate weapon that Wang Feng had created based on the Dark Demon Realm's God Slayer. It had too many functions by itself. If even universe-level life forms couldn't tell the difference, then it would be very difficult for demon god-level powerhouses to fight against celestial gods. It's you. The one who stole the myriad dragon pearl? Meanwhile, a shocking dragon roar resounded through the clouds. They could not distinguish the sound of the dragon's roar. However, his voice seemed to have penetrated their weapons and directly entered their souls. Everyone was shocked. This giant dragon was too strong. It was as if they had been completely discovered. You actually dare to appear in front of me. The five-colored divine dragon let out a disdainful and cold dragon roar. At this moment, the Golden Dragon King was also stunned. He was not as powerful as the five-colored divine dragon, so he could not tell what the black sword was. However, since the five-colored divine dragon had spoken, it could not be wrong. Thinking of this, the Golden Dragon King immediately said, "Venerable Dragon God, since these are the thieves, why do you need to do it yourself? Why don't you let the Dragon God realm do it? Right now, in my Dragon Palace, they will not be able to return." The five-colored divine dragon was silent. A trace of contempt flashed in his eyes, but he said lightly, "Then I'll leave it to you. Don't let me down." Hearing this, the Golden Dragon King was delighted. His heart was filled with anger. He let out a long roar and transformed into a giant golden dragon that was tens of thousands of meters long. "Kill them!" the Golden Dragon King roared. In an instant, all the dragon warriors in the Dragon Palace transformed into their original forms. Giant dragons that exuded a powerful aura immediately surrounded the place. Not even a trace of breeze could blow in. Jing Tian, who was inside the god-slaying martial artist, was a little flustered. This was too King fast. Even if they were prepared, it shouldn't be like this. "Young man, give the order." Ing Zheng immediately shouted, "Don't be in a daze. It's time to test the true power of this weapon that was given by the ancestral god and is worth hundreds of thousands of points." Jing Tian suddenly came to his senses. His mind moved. More than 37,600 giant dragons have been detected. Locked on, the strongest dragon emperor has not exceeded the highest annihilation level of the god-killing weapon. The fundamental origin energy has changed. Currently, two types of attacks can be carried out. First, slash the souls and destroy the spirit. Consume 90% of the god-killing weapon's energy, destroy all the giant dragons lives in one fell swoop, and slash the souls. Second, slash the souls and fix the spirit. Consume 30% of the god-killing weapon's energy, slash the 3 spirits of all the giant dragons, fix the 3 spirits, and paralyze them. At least for a few years, they will not be able to cultivate and their intelligence will decrease. It will take 10 years for them to recover. The crisp and clear notification made Jing Tian suck in a cold breath. However, at this time, Jing Tian did not make a decision immediately. Instead, he immediately shared the information with everyone. Choose the second option, Yi Fan immediately said. These giant dragons are just small fries to us now. After killing them, their energy will be used up. But next, when facing the 5-colored divine dragon, we can only run. Moreover, with only 1 layer of energy left, we probably can't run too far. That's right. Xiao Sun nodded. Choose the second option. Our enemy is that 5-colored divine dragon, Ghostly echoed. Cao Cao and Yingzheng also nodded slightly. After hearing this, Jing Tian directly chose the second option. In fact, he had already chosen the second option in his heart, but to be safe, he still asked for the opinions of the others. After all, it was not an exaggeration to say that his every move was related to their life and death. Confirming the attack program. Beginning implementation. Target locked. Analyzing the life characteristics of all the giant dragons. Analysis complete. Activating the origin of Soul Slayer. Beginning the attack of Soul Slayer. Following the god-killing weapon's words, a quiet mechanical voice sounded. The 100-meter-long giant sword began to emit a dazzling divine light. In an instant, the world froze, and the origin of the sword spread to the entire giant sword, turning into a faint rainbow light. Under this rainbow light, the giant sword disappeared in the blink of an eye. In the air, there were only cracks that appeared like lightning. Countless giant dragons seemed to have been hit by the pause button, and were stunned in the sky like statues. Even the Golden Dragon King was the same. There were no wounds on his body, but he could no longer move. Rumble! In the next moment, all the giant dragons fell into Dragon City like raindrops, smashing this magnificent city into pieces. When everyone saw this scene, they immediately gasped and stared blankly. Chapter 1876. Ancestral Realm. Master, this god-slaying weapon is so powerful? Yan Mengyao stared blankly at the scene on the screen. Yan Mengyao could see the movements of Jing Tian and the others. After all, as an event dungeon opened by Wang Feng, he naturally needed to observe their movements at all times. Otherwise, Wang Feng couldn't bear to lose one of them accidentally. Jing Tian and the other children of destiny represented the luck of a world, and gathered the faith of a world. No matter who was missing, he would lose a lot of faith power. Now that the 5th reincarnation was about to be established, the faith power couldn't be lost. It's not that big. Wang Feng glanced at it casually. This should be the weakest. The power of the god-slaying weapon fluctuates according to the user's origin power. Jing Tian's origin power may not be controlled by half. At this time, half of the power of the god-slaying weapon hasn't been released. Wang Feng shook his head. He knew best what he created. Since it was something that was put in the prize pool, it was worth hundreds of thousands of points. Naturally, it wouldn't be simple. It couldn't be said that this thing was stronger than all kinds of origins. However, if it was in the hands of a powerhouse, it would naturally be stronger. But I don't feel that I'm that strong. Yan Mengyao said blankly. Obviously, I'm also a god slayer. I'm still an eternal god slayer. Why aren't you strong? Wang Feng asked. It's just a feeling, Yan Mengyao said. I feel like I'm very weak. When Master fought with Mo Tiance for the first time, I didn't help at all. I couldn't resist at all when encountering that kind of universe-level life form. But this god-slaying weapon can let a demon god-level powerhouse fight with a heavenly god of the god system universe. Master, back then, you should be several times stronger than these children of destiny now, right? Wang Feng couldn't help but laugh. How can this be compared? Wang Feng glared at her. Although you're an eternal god-slayer, you were created by Yen Lord. In terms of algebra, you're the 6th generation of the god-slayer. But this god-slaying weapon was indeed deduced by me based on your foundation and integrated with the void engine of the super-godly universe. It's the 7th generation. Even in the super-godly universe, it's one of a kind. Moreover, the heavenly gods of the divine system universe are not as strong as you think. Based on the few heavenly gods I've fought so far, most of them only have will projections. Although they have the enhancement of their divine territories and their spawns, they're still very weak. But unless it's within the rules of their god system's universe, it's impossible for them to rival those who truly possess the will of the universe outside. After all, the will of the universe is not something that can be casually possessed. Among the Empyrean gods in the divine system universe, there are only a few who possess the true will of the universe. Those are the ones that are considered to be more powerful. The god-slaying martial art naturally cannot jump ranks and exchange blows with those relatively powerful ones. There's more. You're not weak. Wang Feng's expression turned serious when he said this. You are the heavenly Tao of the ancestral realm, and your status is comparable to the Yama Lords. When the 9 paths of the ancestral realm were established, your strength easily surpassed Yen Qingjue and Shi Yu. Becoming a universe-level life form is a sure thing. And the god-slaying weapon is just a set of weapons. You are not a weapon, Wang Feng said seriously. He saw Yen Mengyao looking at him with a smile. Why are you looking at me? Wang Feng asked. Master, it's been a long time since I've heard you praise someone like this. Yen Mengyao giggled. Say more, I like to hear it. Is it because you've been in contact with fewer women recently that your reaction has become slower? Wang Feng suddenly realized. F***CK. With Yen Mengyao as the eternal god-slaying database and the information obtained by following him after becoming the heavenly Tao. How could she not know what he was talking about? Wang Feng looked at the beauty in front of him. She was somewhat similar to Yen Qingjue, but she was not one of the soul demons in the dark demon realm. You're asking for a beating. Wang Feng scolded with a smile and slapped the latter's perky buttocks. Look carefully, don't seduce your master here. With a smack, waves of flesh rippled. That undulating arc seemed to gather all the charm in the world. Aya. Yen Mengyao moaned coquettishly and looked at Wang Feng with a smile. Isn't this servant trying to add some fun to Master's boring and withered cultivation? This servant has dual cultivated with Master's soul before. But you haven't dual cultivated your body before. What a pity. Wang Feng couldn't help but laugh. This was Yen Mingyao's appearance when she first recognized him as her master and transformed into her human form. But at that time, it was because of Yen Zhu's settings and Yen Mingyao's database, which had a lot of records of Wang Feng's deeds at that time. So, it was not her nature. Now it seemed, Master, look, your confidants have been abducted by the Crimson Divine Fox Emperor. Yen Mengyao pursed her red lips slightly and poured out her beautiful heart. The only ones who can accompany you now are Yen Zhu, and Shi Yu. Yen Zhu is a soul demon. Although he is beautiful, he is too tall and does not meet Master's aesthetic standards. Shi Yu is the heavenly Tao of the Douluo divine world. She is usually aloof and has a temperament like a fairy. Although she is also as beautiful as a goddess, she is not coquettish enough. She is also very reserved. Yen Mengyao pinched her voice and said softly and coquettishly, For you, Master, it's too bland and tasteless. There is a Qian Rinxue in the transcendent cosmos, but you are not free. You often go to the transcendent cosmos. Wang Feng. As for the women from other worlds, they are really not worthy of you. Yan Mingyao's tone became more and more charming. Earlier, those two fellows Ying Zheng and Chao Chao wanted to offer some beauties as sacrifices. Oh right. Wang Feng suddenly thought of this. In their world, why didn't they sacrifice some beauties? Of course it was me who stopped them. Yan Mengyao giggled. Why would they sacrifice those women from the mortal world? So that Master can give them divine power for no reason? How can there be such a good thing in the world? I secretly reminded them that sacrificing them is useless to the ancestor god. Why is it useless? Wang Feng knocked Yan Mengyao's head. There are children of destiny and daughters of destiny. How can it be useless? No, why does everyone in the group seem to be men? The only woman is Xiao Suner? She is a married woman? Wang Feng seemed to have found a blind spot. If there were children of destiny, there would naturally be daughters of destiny. There were several in each world. Why didn't any of them join the group? Oh, Master, you finally found out. Yan Mengyao seemed to be frightened and hurriedly took 2 steps back. Yan Zhu said that in order to prevent Master from becoming a stud horse, there are enough women around you. If there are more, it will only take away your power for no reason and drag you down for no reason. Therefore, they are all chosen children of destiny. Chapter 1877. Wang Feng. Holy shit. This Yan Qingjue. This is the Yama Master's decision, it has nothing to do with me. Yan Mengyao took 2 more steps back. It's fine. Wang Feng looked at her with a half-smile. Yan Qingjue is right. I don't have time to care about women right now. But you're right. We've already dual cultivated our souls. It's a pity that we didn't dual cultivate our bodies. Yan Mingyao's eyes lit up when she heard this. She immediately leaned over and winked coquettishly. But then, Wang Feng's body moved slightly, and 2 identical bodies suddenly appeared beside him. Each of them gave off a unique aura. How can one dual cultivate their bodies be enough? Wang Feng said with a smile. Why, we have to do it together, right? Yan Mingyao's face turned pale, and she subconsciously took a few steps back. She covered her mouth with one hand and covered her butt with the other. She stammered, Master, let's watch the situation over there. The 5-colored divine dragon is moving. It's fine, we'll dual cultivate our bodies while watching. No, don't, ugh. Dragon God Realm, Dragon Palace. The god-slaying martial art used soul-slaying and soul-fixing. Tens of thousands of dragons fell from the sky like a rain of dragons. The entire dragon city was riddled with holes. Everyone inside the god-slaying martial art was excited and excited. Fuck, this is too damn strong. Yi Fan said excitedly. If it weren't for that 5-colored divine dragon, wouldn't we be able to sweep through the entire dragon god record with this god-slaying martial art? This is too abnormal. It is indeed too abnormal. Jing Tian's voice was trembling. What the introduction said was true, hundreds of thousands of points, it's true. I feel like this weapon is much stronger than we imagined. Ghostly sighed. The god-slaying martial art relies on the power of origin to activate. In other words, the power of the god-slaying martial art is related to the power of the origin. Even with the little boy's current power of origin, he can perform so well. Big brothers, it's not over yet. Xiao Sun-er's face was red, but she hurriedly reminded them. Next is the 5-colored divine dragon. Cao Cao pondered. A life form of this level, I wonder how strong he is. I'm afraid it will be very difficult. Ying thought for a few seconds. According to the analysis of our think tank, the strength of this 5-colored divine dragon should far surpass our imagination. Perhaps it only needs a few thoughts to kill us. However, if we are inside the god-slaying martial art, that might not necessarily be the case. What Ying said was not wrong. At this moment, The five-colored divine dragon in the sky stared at the huge sword formed by the god-slaying weapon. The five-colored divine dragon did not show any expression as it watched the tens of thousands of dragons fall in a seemingly frozen state. There was not even the slightest trace of anger in his eyes. There was only coldness and indifference. In the next moment, the five-colored divine dragon's eyes glowed with boundless golden light. So it's just an Origin Grade Saint artifact. If you don't attack, you won't be able to tell. The five-colored divine dragon snorted coldly. However, if that's all, then all of you can perish. The instant his words left his mouth, a voice rang out. As soon as the words left his mouth, the surrounding scenery suddenly changed drastically. Everything seemed to be disappearing and reassembling. In just an instant, everyone inside the god-slaying martial art, even though they were isolated from the outside world, felt a strong sense of fear. Sacred Dragon Will, Universe Annihilation. The boundless and terrifying will, with the five-colored divine dragon as the center, seemed to want to shatter the entire dragon god realm. In front of such a great power, it seemed that the five-colored divine dragon was the only thing in the entire world, emitting billions of divine light. The true will of the universe was irresistible. But at this moment, almost immediately, the power of the god-slaying martial art was revealed. Accompanied by the boundless and majestic will, the entire world seemed to be crushed and everything disappeared into nothingness. All life in the world would cease to exist. Inside the god-slaying martial art, a strong will fluctuation and pressure has been detected, temporarily activating the evasion program. Unable to evade. User, please be prepared. Next, all of the origin energy will be consumed to launch the strongest attack of this form. There is a 70% chance that all of you will be unharmed. Do you want to activate it? Jing Tian suddenly woke up and roared. Activate it immediately. They could not use words to describe their feelings when facing such a terrifying power. But there were a few times when they had seen this power. It was just that, at that time, the one facing this power was not themselves. It was the ancestor god. The ancestor god was so relaxed. In the blink of an eye, everything could be settled. It was as if this power was as simple as raising a hand. Although they had long known that this unimaginable power was definitely very strong. But only when they truly faced it, could they feel the boundless and majestic power of this power and that kind of despair and fear. Everyone who was still excited a moment ago immediately fell silent. In fact, the hard power among them. They were all about the same. The system of each world was different, but their strength was about the same. At this moment, they could clearly feel that if they were outside, they might turn into nothingness in the next moment in front of this power. Following Jing Tian's order, almost in the next moment, the god-slaying martial art suddenly emitted an intense light. Like the origin of the storm, the giant sword turned into a ray of cosmic light, with an aura that could cut through everything, as if it was going to cut through that unparalleled will light. However, every time it moved forward an inch, the god-slaying martial art would shatter an inch. At the moment when it shattered to the point where only half of the sword was left, it rushed into the clouds and tore a small hole in the sea of will light that could destroy the world, and saw the true body of the five-colored divine dragon. The five-colored divine dragon was slightly stunned, as if it did not expect this weapon to be so powerful. Vaguely, it could even feel that the half of the weapon was emitting a fatal but subtle aura. Zing! The five-colored divine dragon's huge body was slashed by the half of the god-slaying martial art. It actually felt a slight pain. There seemed to be an extreme power in its divine soul that was corroding it at an extremely terrifying speed. What kind of power is this? The five-colored divine dragon was extremely shocked. The five-colored divine dragon was slightly stunned, as if it did not expect this weapon to be so powerful. Vaguely, it could even feel that the half of the weapon was emitting a fatal but subtle aura. Zing! The five-colored divine dragon's huge body was slashed by the half of the god-slaying martial art. It actually felt a slight pain. There seemed to be an extreme power in its divine soul that was corroding it at an extremely terrifying speed. What kind of power is this? The five-colored divine dragon was extremely shocked. FPZW. Chapter 1878. At this moment, inside the god-slaying weapon, everyone was silent. Who would have thought that the strongest attack of the god-slaying weapon would only slightly injure the five-colored divine dragon? What was the difference between this and scraping? At this moment, they finally understood how powerful this terrifying life form was. However, what should they do next? Everyone was silent. But the god-slaying weapon said. Jing Tian lowered his voice. In that instant, he felt as if all the origin energy in his body had been sucked out. We have a 70% chance of being unharmed, that is to say, surviving. Jing Tian looked outside, at the huge five-colored divine dragon, and muttered, "How can we survive? 70% chance, I'm afraid it's not 0% chance? How is it possible for them to have such a high chance of survival when the attacks were like scraping sand? The strongest attack. What level of power is that?" Yi Fan sighed. When we broke through just now, the god-slaying weapon was almost in a completely shattered state, and only then did it barely injure the five-colored divine dragon. Just now they all felt the aura of death. That was the feeling of being within reach. It was hard to imagine that level of power. If not for the protection of the god-slaying weapon, they might have disappeared in an instant. What do we do now? Xiao Sun opened her mouth and asked a question that everyone was unwilling to face. Wait for death? The huge sword formed outside the god-slaying weapon shattered, and they were now inside the original ball of the god-slaying weapon. It directly returned to its original form. "I don't believe it," Yingzheng shouted. "This beast is so powerful." "Brother, you have to believe it." Cao Cao patted Yingzheng's shoulder. "If this beast wants to destroy this world, it should be a matter of an instant." Yingzheng. "I think," Ghostly suddenly said, "the god-slaying weapon shouldn't be wrong. This is the probability calculated by the god-slaying weapon. Perhaps there is something that we haven't figured out." Just as Ghostly's voice faded, Xiao Sun suddenly exclaimed, "Look, there's something wrong with that beast." Everyone looked over and was slightly stunned. They saw that the five-colored divine dragon seemed to have retracted that unimaginably terrifying willpower, and there was a hint of anxiety in its eyes. The scraping action, which could only be considered a small wound, seemed to have made him panic. "Look, the small wound caused by the god-slaying martial skill earlier doesn't seem to have disappeared," Yi Fan suddenly said. "This is very fishy. For a life form of this level, even if the damage caused by the god-slaying weapon was condensed from the origin energy, such a small wound should have healed in the blink of an eye. It's like using a sharp knife. If you leave a scar on my body will automatically recover in a few breaths at most." But now everyone seemed to have discovered a blind spot. The next moment, the five-colored divine dragon suddenly roared twice at the sky, and then its body immediately began to rise. He seemed to be avoiding something. "It seems to be leaving?" Jing Tian's eyes suddenly widened. Everyone was slightly dumbfounded. A circle of light that shone like the sun suddenly appeared in the sky. The five-colored divine dragon roared as it flew into the circle of light. The moment the huge figure disappeared, the light in this world became brighter. "We survived," Xiao Sun muttered. "Why did that five-colored enormous dragon suddenly leave? Shouldn't it be attacking us? Right now, the enormous sword formed by the god-slaying martial skill has shattered and disappeared." Everyone was puzzled. "It must be because of that wound," Yi Fan said. "That wound looked like a scraping action, but in reality, it might contain a power that we don't know about. It might be a power that even that bastard feared. We know too little about the god-slaying martial skill." Perhaps this is the 70% probability that the god-slaying martial skill mentioned. Little fellow, why don't you ask the god-slaying martial skill what the reason is? Jing Tian asked. The god-slaying martial skill only gave 4 words. God-slaying power. God-slaying power? Everyone was puzzled, as if this was the first time they understood this power. However, now that the bastard had left, they could be considered to have won this time. Those enormous dragons below were merely lambs waiting to be slaughtered. Even that dragon emperor was the same. Ancestral realm. Master, when you created the god-slaying martial skill, did you hide some other power? Yan Mingyao's face was red, and there was a rare tiredness on her face. She softly asked as she climbed onto a cloud bed. Hide? Wang Feng shook his head slightly. I didn't hide it. The god-slaying martial skill, the 2 words god-slaying, doesn't represent the god-slaying of the dark demon field. This god-slaying martial skill was created according to the specifications of the 6th generation god-slaying of the dark demon field. Naturally, it can't be exactly the same as the god-slaying of the dark demon field. It's obviously impossible to rely on Jing Tian and the others to activate the god-slaying martial skill to defeat that dragon. The strength of a universe-level life form is far beyond their imagination. The sacred dragon will that enormous dragon displayed just now was very interesting. This should be the true universe will from the 10,000 Dragons universe. It's not ordinary. Wang Feng pondered. The universe will wasn't something that could be found on the streets. This dragon sent by the 10,000 Dragons universe already had the universe will, and its strength was extraordinary. It seemed that the 10,000 Dragons universe wasn't simple. You still haven't told me? Yan Mengyao gently blew on the cloud bed. Above the cloud bed that was shrouded in clouds and mist, waves of clouds suddenly appeared. Her skin that was as white as snow and jade could be vaguely seen, and there was even a faint hint of red. Didn't I tell you about the god-slaying martial skill? Wang Feng said. Yan Mengyao pondered for a few seconds, and seemed to recall something. She suddenly said, Oh, it's the god-slaying spear's power? You used the god-slaying spear's power on it? Wang Feng nodded slightly. The god-slaying spear was an innate treasure of the primitive universe, and naturally wasn't simple. Wang Feng didn't know how many times he had used it, but the god-slaying spear carried an extremely powerful fiendish aura. Back in the Douluo continent, Wang Feng used the god-slaying spear to fight against a few strong enemies. Later, when he slowly became stronger, and the chaotic green lotus was completely restored, the various forms it took were naturally extremely powerful. The most powerful thing about the god-slaying spear's fiendish aura was that it could directly injure the soul when it caused damage, and it was difficult to recover. Although this fiendish aura alone couldn't deal with a universe-level life form. However, it was enough to scare them away. Especially that 5-colored divine dragon. The god-slaying spear's fiendish aura was modified by me, and it became the god-slaying martial skill. That dragon probably sensed that its dragon body wasn't immune to this kind of damage, and it was frightened. That's why it ran away. Wang Feng said, however, it ran away very quickly. This bastard was very vigilant when it came. It seemed to know a lot about the God System universe, or more accurately, it knew a lot about the battle between me and the God System universe. I'm guessing that it came here to destroy the Dragon God realm. It didn't come here to deal with Jing Tian and the others. End of chapter. Chapter 1879. As for Wang Feng's guess, Yan Mengyao was very surprised. She never thought that it was possible. They gave the 10,000 dragon pearl to the Golden Dragon King. Wang Feng frowned slightly. I think it's very likely that it has something to do with the Dragon God's identity, and not the Golden Dragon King or the Dragon God realm. In fact, they might just be using the 10,000 dragon pearl as an experiment. The 10,000 dragon pearl contains a few wisps of great Tao power, and they came from the creation jade disk. They might not know what they can do. Now that the 10,000 dragon pearl is gone, I used the creation jade disc to absorb it. So the 10,000 dragons universe might be worried about something. In any case, the 5-colored divine dragon's attitude toward the dragon god realm is very different from before. They're either here to find the 10,000 dragon pearl or destroy the dragon god realm. There's no way they're here to deal with Jing Tian and the others. Jing Tian and the others aren't strong enough to catch the attention of the dragons. Speaking of which, Wang Feng looked at the happy Jing Tian and the others on the screen and said, "Let's give them their rewards first. Of course, we can't give them the same amount of points as the previous one. On average, we should give them 1,000,000 points each. Those dragons can only be fed to the dragons in the ancestral realm right now." There were a lot of things in the prize pool. Wang Feng wasn't worried that they could exchange all the points. He hoped that they could exchange more points and grow faster. He believed that after experiencing the Dragon God Realm's instance dungeon this time, the strength of these people should have grown by a large amount. "You're so generous, Master." Yan Mengyao giggled. "What's next? What about the Dragon God Realm? We'll leave this place to the Douluo God Realm. Aren't Tang San and Long Xie here?" Wang Feng said indifferently. "At the Dragon God Realm. On a mountain peak outside Dragon City." "It's that simple?" Long Xie's eyes widened. "I saw that thing didn't hurt that multicolored beast at all. What's going on?" "It was hurt, but it was a very small wound." Tang San shook his head. "These people came from the other side and they are using that weapon. Just from the fact that it killed tens of thousands of huge dragons with a single strike, it is definitely a divine weapon that surpasses our imagination." "I know." Long Xie nodded. "When the Emperor left, he said that the ancestral god gave them these things. Of course it's simple. It's just that I really don't understand that last attack. That 5-colored beast is so powerful. That powerful willpower almost crushed me to death just now. That weapon was also shattered. He clearly didn't suffer any serious injuries, but he left. It's ridiculous." Long Xie shrugged. "Perhaps it's fear," Tang San muttered. The 5-colored dragon clan might truly be afraid of the ancestor god behind the creation of that weapon. It could also be that the weapon contains a powerful force that we don't know of. In any case, the threat that the Dragon God realm poses to us should have disappeared. After that, Tang San breathed a sigh of relief. "That is indeed a good thing." Long Xie thought for a moment. "Speaking of which, who exactly is that ancestor god? These fellows aren't weak. Moreover, I can faintly feel that each of them has a unique aura." "What kind of aura?" Tang San asked curiously. Long Xie thought for a moment. "It's just like how I felt when I met Boss on the Douluo continent." Tang San didn't quite understand Long Xie's description. "Are you saying that each of them has the same potential as Big Brother Feng?" "That's probably the feeling," Long Xie said. "You have the same aura." Tang San laughed. "You don't know where that feeling came from. It's not reliable. I've absorbed a lot of resentment and negative energy in this world. His ability to sense auras is much stronger than yours." Long Xie waved a hand. Tang San smiled in agreement. "Oh right, isn't your youngest son already born?" Long Xie asked. "Why don't you send him to this world to train? Your eldest daughter and son-in-law have both ascended to godhood. Your boss's brother, so your youngest son should call me uncle." Long Xie pondered. "The Golden Dragon King's power is far beyond your imagination. I can purify that bastard's power. I can use it as a safeguard for your youngest son. What do you think?" Long Xie smiled. "I'm so happy when I think about the Dragon God's mongrel power being used by you gods." Tang San. "You don't want to give my son a gift at all. You just want to make yourself happy, right?" "Thank you." Tang San nodded. "You're welcome." Long Xie burst into laughter and said, "Let's go and discuss this with them." They should be willing to give us a golden dragon king carcass. It was indeed no problem. The entire dragon city had been destroyed. Tens of thousands of dragons. A mere golden dragon king's body was nothing. Cao Cao gave it to Long Xie and the others without even thinking about it. Even if they didn't give him any important information along the way. Even so, the Dragon Emperor's body was enough to befriend a God King of the divine realm. 1,000,000 points made everyone's face bloom with bright smiles. So this is a large-scale event dungeon. Jing Tian sighed. I really want to do it a few more times. It's too good. We've already earned 1,000,000 points this time. The event is too much. Based on my experience, Yi Fan said with a smile, next should be the grass planting stage. The ancestor god will let us use up the points before starting another event. However, this is only the first event dungeon of the God Hunt mission. The God Hunt mission is still ongoing, so we'll continue to earn points. But we still need to settle down for a while. 1,000,000 points should be enough for us to take a big step forward. Everyone nodded. By the way, I suddenly thought of something. Han Li asked, why didn't the South Profound Immortal Sovereign, who joined the group with me, appear in this event dungeon? Everyone was also stunned. They hadn't thought of this before. Now that Han Li brought it up, they came to their senses. That's right. Wasn't everyone supposed to participate in this event? Why was there one person missing? That was very strange. It seems that he hasn't spoken in the group either. Yi Fan frowned. That shouldn't be the case. I remember that he responded before the event started. Only the ancestor god should know about this. End of chapter. Chapter 1880. The Dragon God World event had ended. Other than the South Mystic Celestial Sovereign, everyone else had obtained a large amount of points. After returning to their respective worlds, they all began to cultivate in seclusion. Ancestral Realm. Oh right, Master. I didn't notice the South Mystic Celestial Sovereign either? He didn't participate in this event. Where did he go? Yan Mengyao asked this question because she didn't notice it either. She only realized it when Jing Tian and Yi Fan mentioned it. Wang Feng frowned for a few seconds, then slowly said, have you forgotten what he exchanged for the first time? It's the eternal tracing sand. Yan Mengyao immediately said. But after saying it, she understood. The eternal tracing sand was an ultimate treasure that could enter the river of time. It could be used to search for the traces of important people or things. Of course, it was something that Wang Feng found in the river of time with his origin wheel. Of course, it wasn't very useful to him. After all, he could enter the river of time at any time. But to others, it was naturally an ultimate treasure. Master, you mean he went to find someone important? Yan Mengyao immediately recalled the origin of the South Mystic Celestial Sovereign. In his previous life, the South Mystic Celestial Sovereign should have been the strongest person in this chat group. Later, due to the interference of the Divine System universe, the South Mystic Celestial Sovereign was killed by a descendant of a god from the Divine System universe. At the same time, his master, a woman, was taken away. I remember that in order to obtain points, he gave you the first fragment of the creation jade disc. Then, he immediately exchanged it for the eternal tracing sand that was worth a few 100,000. Yan Mengyao pondered, could it be that he found his master's trace and went directly? That shouldn't be the case. With his current strength, even if he found his master's trace, wouldn't he be courting death if he went directly? His master was taken away by a god from the Divine System universe. Wang Feng's gaze was deep. There's only one possibility. What? He has a reason that he has to go. Wang Feng said, perhaps his master encountered some danger. Even if he isn't strong enough now, he has to go. However, I had no choice but to go. At that time, I gave him 3 divine protective lights to protect his life. But those protective divine lights can only protect against heavenly god-level attack. If he's any stronger, he won't be able to do it. Moreover, he still has several 100,000 points. He can also exchange them for some good stuff. However, since his master was taken away by a heavenly god from the divine system universe, he must have provoked a heavenly god. Wang Feng paused for a moment. Wait, something's not right. Wang Feng raised his eyes, and his figure suddenly disappeared on the spot. Meanwhile, Su Fan walked unsteadily on the crimson ground. His eyes were filled with determination and a tinge of blood. Ever since the ancestor god bestowed him with point, his cultivation was growing at a rapid pace. He was different from the others in the group. In his previous life, he had stood at an extremely high position. It could be said that there were almost no obstacles in his cultivation. Even if the place where he was reborn was the age of Dharma's end, where spiritual energy had withered. However, with the various treasures that he had obtained using the reward pool, he had reached an extremely high level in a very short time. One had to know that in the event prize pool, there were even treasures that could temporarily change the flow of time. It allowed Su Fan to improve rapidly in a very short period of time. Naturally, the reason he was trying so hard to improve himself was so that he could find his master. Through the eternal tracing sand, he already knew the location of his master. His master was taken to another universe by that god. The specific location was in the world that he was currently in. As for how he got there, in the event prize pool, there was a treasure similar to the eternal tracing sand, the eternal cave ritual. As long as he rotated this object, according to the location where the eternal tracing sand appeared, he could directly travel to that location. It was still a one-time consumable item. It was extremely precious. Su Fan used up the remaining points to barely get here. My current cultivation might only be about 2/3 of my strength in my previous life. Su Fan took a deep breath. However, to be able to recover this strength in such a short period of time is already incredible. He moved forward. This world was very strange. The moment he entered, he felt as if his entire body was sealed. The spiritual energy and various Tao techniques in his body were completely useless. It was as if all the rules had changed. All the divine abilities, secret techniques, and so on that he was familiar with could not be used. At the same time, he also had to face a pressure as majestic as a mountain. If it was in the past, he would not be able to withstand this huge pressure. Fortunately, the 3 protective divine lights bestowed by the ancestor god reduced this pressure by more than 90%, allowing him to move forward normally in this world. This should be the world of that god. Su Fan's eyes were complicated and numb. According to the original plan, although he knew the location of his master, he did not plan to come immediately. According to the original plan, Su Fan planned to participate in the Dragon God Realms event and obtain a large number of points. His strength had to at least surpass his previous life's strength. He had to make sufficient preparations before coming to this world. At least he could guarantee that he could save his master and return safely. However, things did not go as planned. When he used the eternal tracing sand, he planned to first see where his master was. He sensed it. This eternal tracing sand could temporarily allow him to enter a long river of time and see the situation after his master was taken away. The situation was not good. After his master was brought to this world by that god, it seemed that he was going to be brainwashed. In the words of that god, he would become the god's family. He would become the possession of that god. Motherf *Ker, how could he endure this? Because it was his own personal matter, Su Fan did not want the group members to get involved and bring trouble to himself. Therefore, he did not say a word. He, who was bristling with anger, came to this world straight away. Although, the moment he came to this world, he knew that there was a possibility that he would not be able to return. The pressure that this world constantly emitted made him know that this was not something he could resist. However, since he was already here, How could he return? I definitely cannot let my master become that god's family. Su Fan took a deep breath and gritted his teeth. Even if I die, I will not. Back then, he was killed by the spawn of that god. Su Fan looked forward. At the end of his line of sight, there was an extremely grand palace. It was difficult to describe the grandeur and magnificence of this palace with words. In his previous life, he also had his own immortal palace, but it was far from being comparable to this palace. Chapter 1881. He walked forward, one step at a time. He knew that even if he went to the palace and saw his master, he might not be able to do anything, but he had to give it a try. At the end of his line of sight was the golden palace that stood above the clouds. Your Eminence, it seems that an uninvited guest has arrived in the divine realm. A sonorous voice rang out from the center of the palace. In the main hall, there seemed to be countless jade pillars supporting the eaves above. The pillars seemed to be comparable to an entire world, with countless moving images on them. Strands of golden energy slowly flowed out from each of the pillars. Counting carefully, there were hundreds and thousands of pillars in the palace. They were densely packed together. The golden energy drifted out of each pillar, gathered at the center, and slowly flowed upward. There was a throne at the top of the palace. Countless strands of golden energy that represented the power of faith flowed into the throne. An imposing figure sat quietly on the throne. Next to him were two goddess-like women. They sat quietly on either side of the throne like children, gently fanning themselves. Below, rows of clan members in armor and divine robes of various shapes and sizes lined up on both sides. "It's a human," the sonorous voice said again. The loud voice continued, "It seems to be a human that I once killed. I didn't expect him to come back to life. Your Eminence, please allow me to go and crush this insect that dares to enter the divine domain into dust." The owner of the voice was a giant that was at least 10 feet tall. Although he was a human, he had a pair of wings on his back and a dragon's head on his face. His body was covered with thick golden hair. Even the armor that shone like black gold could not cover up the thick hair on his body. "No need," Her Eminence said nonchalantly. "Since he was able to enter my divine realm, he's no ordinary being. Besides, I expected him to come here. Don't worry, it's all part of my plan. Go down and prepare to activate the divine will of the 10 beasts." "Then what should we do with this ant?" the gigantic life form with a loud and clear voice asked. "I'll only send someone to destroy him," said Her Eminence with a wave of her hand. In an instant, all the minions in the palace disappeared. A moment later, "Come here," Her Eminence said flatly. A figure suddenly appeared in the void in front of him. "He used to be your disciple, so you should be the one to deal with him, shouldn't you?" Her Eminence smiled faintly. He seemed to be quite interested in this. The figure trembled slightly in the void before replying in a calm and fervent voice, "As you command." His figure disappeared into the void. A moment later, a shadow appeared. Seeing this shadow, only then did the god stand up and say, "Your Highness, I have done as you instructed. Back then, you asked me to spare that ant's life. Could it be because of this?" "What secrets does that ant have?" The shadow remained silent. "Your Highness, I've done so much for you. Can't you tell me anything?" Her Eminence's tone changed slightly. "Let's talk about it when you can do it," the shadow replied casually. Hearing this, the god took a deep breath and said slowly, "Your Highness, why do you want to deal with that aboriginal god? Now that the War of the Gods has caused an uproar in the universe, logically speaking, given the god system behind you, even if that aboriginal god is going to die or lose, he should be defeated. He should be defeated fair and square in the War of the God. This way, the higher-ups will have enough reason and excuse to take in those unruly aboriginal gods." "Why do you need us to deal with him?" asked Her Eminence. "No matter how weak and useless that God Qiming of the Donghuang divine system is, he is still a war of the gods. Given the current war of the gods, I think that with the war of the gods, your god system and the other major god systems behind you will secretly help that god Qiming to win, right? You have a lot of questions, said the shadow indifferently. Your Highness, please forgive me, said Her Eminence in a low voice. I just don't want to be used as a tool by you. You know how I feel about you. Besides, if I get involved in the war of the gods, my god system may be implicated as well. So, Your Highness, please tell me why you want me to do this. Killing a native heavenly god is nothing to me. However, this aboriginal god is one of the main characters of the War of the Gods. The shadow was silent for a long time. Are you very confident? Asked the shadow mockingly. Probably a little, said Her Eminence humbly. Then there's no harm in telling you, said the shadow indifferently. God Qiming won't be able to defeat that aboriginal god unless that god Qiming becomes a paramount god or possesses the strongest will of the universe. Only then can he win. That is, if the other major god systems intend to help him. Then, they will have to give him even more power. Such behavior is too obvious. It's obviously cheating. If those aboriginal gods find out about it, they will definitely not approve of it. At that time, a war of the gods might break out. Exterminating these native heavenly gods is a very humiliating thing for our godly system universe. The higher-ups will try to subdue them if they can. We will only exterminate them as a last resort. So, do you understand? Her Eminence frowned. That huge divine shadow seemed to be twisting and distorting. Is this aboriginal god that powerful? Asked Her Eminence in surprise. What I mean is, I understand the combat power of aboriginal gods. However, a war of the gods is a battle according to the rules of our god system. No matter how strong he is, he won't be able to unleash his full power in a war of the gods. How can he win? Her Eminence was very confused. The rules of a war of the gods were very beneficial to the gods of the god system. For example, there was a very simple rule that both sides could not use more than 50% of the will of the universe. At the same time, there were many conditions to determine the outcome of a war of the gods. For aboriginal gods, no matter how strong the will of the universe was, they could only unleash half of its power. As for the gods of the god system, even if they only had a projection of their projection was only slightly weaker than the will of the universe. The difference was even smaller when the will of the universe was reduced by half. All these rules made it so that a war of the gods was not beneficial to aboriginal gods. However, in the god system, it was extremely fair. Therefore, Her Eminence could not understand what the shadow was saying. Unless the native heaven god was terrifyingly strong. Even if he was suppressed by the rules of a war of the gods, he could still crush Venus god. But how was that possible? He was just an aboriginal god. It did not exist. If you understand, then so be it, said the shadow coldly. I don't expect you to kill him. As long as you can defeat him or injure him, that's fine. Or make him unable to use his powerful abilities. Chapter 1882. In the Palace of the God Dominion. Shadow's voice was extremely cold as it floated in the clouds. However, the god on the throne didn't dare to show any dissatisfaction. I understand what you mean. The god nodded slightly. Is there something special about this native god? Something that can make him ignore the rules of our god system universe? His realm can't be higher than that of a supreme god. Otherwise, he wouldn't be just a native god. If those native heavenly gods were to know that a paramount god had appeared among them, they would have jumped up in anger long ago. There wouldn't be any battle between gods. In the shadow, there was only a cold gaze staring at the god. It was one of the top 10 gods of the Emperor god system. Those who were ranked in the top 10 were naturally extraordinary. The Emperor god system was slightly special in the god system universe. They worshipped a unique and domineering belief style, whether it was the clan tribes they subdued or the worlds and realms they conquered. Most of them had this kind of belief. Of course, because of the existence of the God Seal, unless the God died, these clan tribes wouldn't produce any other belief. In the God system universe there were countless God systems. However, in reality there were only 5 types. All God systems were derived from these 5 types. They were divided into different factions according to their different power sources, and the universes were controlled by the Supreme God. Di Tianxian is a god directly related to the Emperor God system. The shadow glanced at the god. The god's voice and face were covered, so the latter couldn't detect it at all. "I wonder if he can test out that guy's strength," the shadow muttered. At this moment, the god seemed to have sensed something and said, "Could it be that you're suspecting me right now?" "So what if I am?" the shadow said indifferently. "Then you are underestimating me too much." Di Tianxian sighed slightly. "However, to be underestimated by you like this, it's good. It's a good thing. After all, this will bring you a bigger surprise later. I'm very happy to bring surprises to all living beings." Di Tianxian had a calm and composed smile on his face. "So, you asked that human girl to deal with him just now because of this hobby of yours?" the shadow sneered. "Of course." Su Fan took a deep breath and stared at the palace in front of him. In a trance, a figure could be seen flying across the sky from afar. He suddenly stopped in his tracks. It was already extremely difficult for him to move forward, and when he stopped, he felt an overwhelming pressure sweep over him. It made it hard for him to breathe. However, when he stopped, that figure made his breathing speed up a bit. "Master," Su Fan muttered. In the blink of an eye, that beam of light had already arrived in front of Su Fan. It was his master whom he had missed for a long time. She was his guide in his previous life, as well as his lover. Su Fan was wild with joy. He kept muttering, "Master, you're really here? No. Why do you seem?" The smile on his face had yet to fully bloom. It was as if time had frozen. That was because he didn't see any warmth or emotion in his master's eyes. There was only a calm and indifferent look in his eyes. Terrifying, extremely terrifying. It was an emotionless gaze that caused her entire body to emit a divine radiance. Su Fan felt as if he was struck by lightning. 2 words appeared in his mind: clan tribe. Shizhuan had already become that god's minion. Otherwise, it was impossible for her to look at him with such a gaze. In fact, he was even able to see ice-cold, killing intent from those eyes. The next moment, Su Fan's master slightly stretched out her finger, as if she was using her finger as a sword, and flicked her finger. In an instant, a bright light seemed to pierce through the sky and the clouds, heading straight for Su Fan's heart. She didn't even say a word. Su Fan's heart was like dead ashes. Even if he had a tiny bit of hope, he couldn't help but come here. However, it was still too late. Su Fan recalled everything in his mind. He closed his eyes, not waiting for death, because he knew that he wouldn't die. However, that bright finger light, which seemed to be able to destroy a planet, touched Su Fan's body the moment it touched him. Su Fan's body suddenly erupted with a violent light. Boom! When the two collided, the finger light column turned into nothingness, and the violent light that covered Su Fan's body also disappeared and shattered. Su Fan saw it. A hint of surprise appeared in his master's eyes. That frowning eyebrows were still so familiar. But it was only because she didn't kill him with one blow. How ridiculous! He was silent. The strength of these gods had already reached such a level. He could clearly feel that his master's strength now was stronger than in his previous life. However, when he thought about the strength of the ancestor gods, Su Fan felt relieved. Su Fan looked at his master and stretched out his hand, as if he wanted to grab something. But he just sighed. And the latter didn't move again, until a gigantic life form the size of a mountain suddenly appeared in the void. I was just bestowed with divine power by Her Eminence, and became a spiritual supremacy. But now I can't even kill a human who is as weak as an ant. A loud voice slowly sounded. If you didn't have this body and the power of destiny, it would be a waste of Her Eminence's divine power. You're too weak, or maybe you're too soft. Humph, I remember that back then, I personally slapped a weak human like you into pieces. I didn't expect you to still be alive. Su Fan straightened his body and looked at this guy. A descendant of the gods. He remembered it very clearly. Back then, he was killed by this guy with one blow. He couldn't tell what kind of beast this guy was. Its body was so huge that it was like a straight mountain peak, but its head was like that of a dragon. There didn't seem to be anything special about it. But Su Fan knew that this guy was terrifyingly strong. Most importantly, this beast was really ruthless and didn't talk much. At this moment, just as he finished speaking, with a leap, its gigantic body seemed to cover the entire sky of the deity domain. On its head, there was a hideous smile. Since I didn't slap you into pieces last time, I don't believe that you can leave the divine realm alive under my nose this time. Die. The terrifying giant palm was like a mountain country that came crashing down from the sky. Su Fan stood still on the spot. He looked at this scene calmly. The mountainous palm that was like a country came crashing down with an aura that could destroy heaven and earth. However, the moment it came into contact with Su Fan's body, a dazzling golden light suddenly burst out from his body, forming a dazzling light shield. Clang! A sound like the ancient sound of chaos sounded from where the two combined. Su Fan didn't feel anything. Chapter 1883. The golden light barrier that covered his body slowly shattered into pieces. However, to Wang Feng's surprise, the giant life form that slapped him seemed to have been hit by an extremely terrifying force. Not only did its palm break, but it also broke apart. Even its entire body was sent flying. Su Fan could see with his naked eyes that the giant's body was breaking apart. Su Fan was speechless. The ancestor god's three protective divine lights, aren't they too abnormal? Su Fan murmured. His master's attack didn't work because it didn't come into contact with the light shield. So it didn't reflect directly. But that guy had used brute force. Not only did he activate the protective divine light's defense, but he also activated the protective divine light's ability to reflect damage. It might even reflect damage that was several times stronger. In fact, the protective divine lights that Wang Feng gave him, they were formed by combining his divine power with the power of the Black Lotus. Their defensive ability was extremely abnormal. Even the power of origin would suffer a strong rebound as long as it came into contact with the protective divine light. Even the power of origin would be reflected. The stronger the power, the more terrifying the rebound damage. Basically, the rebound damage could directly hit the upper limit of the power of origin. Su Fan's current feelings were indescribable. He came here because he relied on the three protective divine lights that the ancestor god gave him. Originally, he wanted to use them to take his master away. However, his master had become a descendant of that god. There was only one protective divine light left. Su Fan looked at the giant god that had been shattered. To a certain extent, he had avenged the destruction of his previous life. Unfortunately, this was all he could do. Su Fan was determined to die. He looked at his master with a complicated expression. The latter didn't understand. Su Fan knew that he might be reporting to that god. Next, he would have to face that god. Even if he had three protective divine lights, he wouldn't be able to withstand that god's attack. Thinking of this, Su Fan suddenly thought, if I die like this, I'll be letting down the ancestor god's nurturing. The ancestor god had given him so many points that he already had three protective divine light. He could have used the points to quickly strengthen himself. But because of his master, he came to this world in advance and faced such a powerful god. Su Fan shook his head. At this moment in the sky, a majestic figure suddenly appeared. Su Fan's pupils suddenly contracted. Sure enough, it was that god. In his previous life, he had only seen it once. But I will never forget it for the rest of my life. Interesting. Her Eminence spoke slowly as she looked at Su Fan's master. Who would have thought that two of my spirit supremacies would be killed? Even the Mountain Dragon Emperor's divine power was greatly damaged. He fell from a spirit supremacy to a desolate race member. He is on his last breath. It would appear that that native heavenly deity has truly given you quite a bit of power. To be honest, for the first time, Di Tianxian was somewhat dissatisfied with his own clan tribe. This was the first time in many years that he had done something so badly. Yet, it was a simple and crude matter. This made him even more curious about that native heavenly god. Fine, let this god give it a try. Her Eminence's figure was as majestic as the sun, emitting millions of rays of divine light that caused the entire god realm to flicker. What is so special about you? The moment the divine voice fell, the billions of divine lights began to condense. Emperor falling underworld light. The billions of divine lights changed in an instant and gathered above Su Fan's head. Like a torrential waterfall, they suddenly came crashing down. Within them, there was the origin energy that shone like stars. Wherever it passed, it seemed as if everything turned into ruins and rotted away. Su Fan suddenly trembled. He could almost only feel the aura of death. This was something that had never happened in the previous two attacks. Dazzling divine light rose from Su Fan's body again. This time, the divine light was still firmly covering Su Fan's body. The torrential underworld light came crashing down. It fiercely attacked the divine light on Su Fan's body. After an unknown period of time. Break! The divine voice sounded faintly. The divine light on Su Fan's body suddenly shattered. The moment it shattered, the torrential underworld light surged violently and rushed toward the divine shadow in the sky. I see Di Tianxian seemed to be somewhat stunned. What kind of origin energy is this? It can even easily reflect the origin energy. Di Tianxian waved his hand casually. The sleeve formed by the divine shadow directly covered the rebounding underworld light. His facial expression changed slightly and returned to normal. It's only SOSO, Di Tianxian said indifferently. In the distance, in the shadow, a pair of cold eyebrows seemed to be frowning slightly. Di Tianxian is extremely prideful. Compared to the ordinary gods of the divine system, he is even more prideful. Just now, he forcefully took a hit from the origin energy of the underworld light, which was several times stronger than his own. I'm afraid he suffered quite a bit of damage. The shadow shook his head slightly and seemed to be sighing. It's just a protective divine light bestowed by that fellow to his believer. You have to spend so much effort to deal with it. If he comes here personally among the heavenly gods, you, Di Tianxian, can be considered a powerful heavenly god who has truly grasped the will of the universe. However, it seems like you have still underestimated him. Forget it. Let's see how long you can last in his hands. Next time, I have to find someone stronger. Those below the supreme god level, I can't order them around anymore. The shadow seemed to be muttering softly. However, his eyes were still fixed in front of him without moving. At this moment, Di Tianxian calmed down a little and stared at Su Fan. He said indifferently, I want to see how many more you can reflect. After that, another underworld light that blotted out the sky and covered the earth came crashing down like the Milky Way. Are you looking at you? I'm leaving. Su Fan sneered. In his previous life, he was a venerated immortal. His experiences were extraordinary. What happened to his master was a great blow to him. However, it was not enough to make him want to die. At this moment, he only wanted to return to his original world and cultivate crazily. As he thought about this, Su Fan took out the treasure that he had exchanged for in the prize pool and prepared to return. However, it was obvious that Su Fan had underestimated this venerated god. In the divine domain, the gods could seal every inch of space with just a thought. It was impossible for him to leave. Su Fan's plan was very good. When he came, he used the eternal cave ritual track. When he returned, he would use the same thing. However, when he came, he had a premonition that this treasure might lose its effect in the divine domain. However, the power of the protective divine light made him respect the strength of the ancestor god even more. He thought that since the eternal cave ritual track was a product of the ancestor god, it should also be effective in this place. Obviously, Su Fan was wrong. Su Fan's plan was very good. When he came, he used the eternal cave ritual track. When he returned, he would use the same thing. However, when he came, he had a premonition that this treasure might lose its effect in the divine domain. However, the power of the protective divine light made him respect the strength of the ancestor god even more. He thought that since the eternal cave ritual track was a product of the ancestor god, it should also be effective in this place. Obviously, Su Fan was wrong. Chapter 1884. A calm voice resounded throughout the entire deity domain. The sky that was torn apart by the giant hand seemed to have split the entire deity domain. A divine figure that was as majestic as the torrent of the universe broke through the sky and appeared in the deity domain. Below. Su Fan took a deep breath and couldn't help but blurt out, "Ancestor God." The ancestor god was here. This was something he had never expected. For him, who had just become a believer and hadn't been here for long. That majestic golden figure was the first time Su Fan saw the ancestor god descend. Every time he saw it, it was still as majestic and magnificent as before. He didn't agree with these gods. The ancestor god's form was still that of a human. Su Fan also believed that the ancestor god might have evolved from a human to become such a powerful god. Although this god of the deity domain also had the form of a giant human, his appearance and aura didn't have any human characteristic. "I have caused trouble for the ancestor god," Su Fan muttered. In fact, to Wang Feng this wasn't considered trouble. On the contrary, at the same time. A native heavenly god? Di Tianxian looked at the descending divine figure and frowned slightly. His deity domain had been torn apart. He sensed it after it had been torn apart. The strength of this native heavenly god was indeed extraordinary. However, this was his deity domain after all. Di Tianxian waved his hand slightly. In an instant, the shattered sky was restored to its original state at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was as though it had never been torn apart. To come to this god's deity domain so recklessly. Di Tianxian smiled coldly. As expected of those native heavenly gods who don't know their place. This god has been waiting for you for a long time. As a god of the D-god system, he knew this famous native heavenly god very well. He also knew that the blood spirit god, the earth spirit god, and the others of the Kilo divine branch had been defeated in his own divine domain. However, to a god like him, the blood spirit god and the earth spirit god were trash. The heavenly god system was an extremely high realm in the deity system universe. It was extremely complicated and couldn't be judged based on the realm of the heavenly god system universe. There were projections of wills and wills of the universe. Some had passed the initial wheel cataclysm and some had not. There was the strength of the godly realm, the strength of the clan tribe, the strength of the origin, the strength of the universe saint weapon, and so on. In this realm, the strength of a heavenly god could be divided into many levels. There was no need to talk about other things. Just passing the initial wheel cataclysm alone would allow one to split into tens to hundreds of levels. This was because the strength of a heavenly god would naturally grow stronger after each tribulation. However, even if he passed the initial wheel calamity, if he did not nurture a divine domain, nurture a spawn race, and also did not have the true will of the universe, he would not be that strong. Therefore, in this realm, 3, 6, and 9 ranks were not enough to describe it. On the other hand, once one reached the paramount god level, the difference in strength would be obvious. However, reaching the paramount god level was simply too difficult. Tiantian was not afraid of this native heavenly god. He was one of the top 10 experts in the entire imperial god system. It must be known that the top 5 in the imperial god system were all paramount gods. The rest were naturally heavenly gods. For him to be in the top 10 meant that he wasn't that far off from becoming a paramount god. At this position, he had seen too many powerful heavenly gods. He had also fought with many native heavenly gods. It was impossible for him to be afraid. Moreover, Tiantian had expected that Tiantian would come. If Tiantian did not come, he would not be able to perform well. Thinking of this, Tiantian said indifferently, 10 ultimate divine intent. Just as Tiantian finished his sentence, all of a sudden, pillars of light shot up into the sky from 10 different directions in all directions of the god realm from a great distance. A faint smile appeared on Tiantian's face. The 10 ultimate divine intents were formed from 10 different types of ultimate and strongest origins. The divine intent was a type of divine intent array. With his own will of the universe as the center, the array was activated in the divine domain. Any heavenly god that entered the divine domain, Tiantian was confident that he could severely injure them. Even the most famous heavenly gods in the current divine domain's universe. Tiantian could even guarantee that even if they entered his divine domain, they would not be able to leave so easily. Not to mention a mere native heavenly god. Even if they did not die, they would be skinned alive. Divine Emperor's sickle. Tiantian's wrist moved slightly, and a purple-gold sickle appeared in his hand. At the same time, there seemed to be billions of illusory figures behind Tiantian, forming a horrifying and majestic statue. It emitted a powerful aura. Wang Feng narrowed his eyes and looked at this god. It was indeed different. Or rather, it was because of the venue. The aura this god was emitting at this moment was even stronger than that of Yuan. However, Wang Feng believed that Yuan's true strength should be above this god's. Of course, this was just a feeling. After all, they had not truly fought against each other. However, Wang Feng believed in his own feelings. The statue behind him was formed by the power of faith, Yi Zichen said with a frown. Wang Fengxin pondered and said, "It contains the power of faith from at least several universes. Moreover, there is also the aura of the universe's will. This might be a heavenly god who has truly grasped the universe's will. No wonder he can casually invade the immortal Dao civilization universe where Su Fan is from. With such strength, even that civilization can only be crushed." The universe where Su Fan was from in his previous life was a universe that was comparable to Yi Fan's universe. In Su Fan's previous life, he was a celestial prime. He could easily crush countless worlds and planets. The level of his strength was extraordinarily high. Since this god could casually crush him, he was naturally not simple. And that purple sickle. Wang Feng's eyes flickered slightly. It is not weak. It's just that. Wang Feng looked around. The 10 intense light pillars seemed to have covered the entire divine realm with a layer of light. Each pillar of light contained an extremely powerful origin energy. The 10 light pillars seemed to reinforce and counteract each other. In the sky, they intertwined with each other endlessly. Good stuff. Wang Feng's eyes lit up. These origin energies should be very powerful. They should not be weak. From what Wang Feng could sense, there was also an extremely powerful sword origin energy. Wang Feng did not know what the other origin energies were. However, he felt that they were very powerful. As the 10 streams of light intertwined in the sky, Wang Feng could vaguely feel a slight threat. At this time, Wang Feng smiled slightly. Of course, I have to use the Pengu axe. in front of the will of splitting open the sky, no matter how powerful one's origin array was, it was just a piece of paper. Chapter 1885. Not to mention the origin, even the will of the universe would find it difficult to withstand such an extreme attack. Emotiant's will of the galaxy back then was a clear example. It was directly split into fragments by the Pangu axe. As for these origins, I'm sorry, I'll accept them with a smile. Wang Feng took a deep breath. The body he was using now was not the body of faith. The body of faith had always been in the ancestral realm. Wang Feng did not intend to reveal it easily. The body he was using now was the strongest body formed by the will of the heavenly embryo when he cultivated the yin-yang intersection origin with Shiyu. This body was formed by the will of the heavenly embryo and the soul of the initial wheel. The body and soul were highly integrated. It was the most suitable body to use the Panguak. Finishing a battle as quickly as possible had always been Wang Feng's motto. Without hesitation, Wang Feng's palm moved slightly. Along with the bright light from his body, an ancient axe appeared in his hand. The axe, which was like a black and gold flowing light, had a few more traces of gold. The sharp black and gold cold light seemed to be able to cut the entire divine realm in half. Wang Feng's current strength was actually very special. In terms of divine power, he did not have a lot of divine power reserves. Especially this body. This body was not the body of faith. The divine power in the body of faith could be converted from the power of faith. The body of faith was bound to the ancestral realm. The power of faith was endless. Not only could it be stored, but it could also be used for a very long time. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was endless. The number of origins Wang Feng controlled was too many. In addition to the 7 origins of the Origin Tribulation Divine King that set the rules for the ancestral realm, he used the most. The most important one was the primordial origin. In terms of combat power, the primordial origin was almost zero. Basically, it had no combat power. However, the primordial origin was so powerful that it could deduce and analyze the energy of other origins and then integrate the information into the primordial origin. This meant that the primordial origin could continue to cultivate and absorb all kinds of origins through the origin tribulation origin. It could even deduce and even create the will of the universe. This was very frightening. All the wills of the universe were wills that existed in the multiverse itself, and they were very rare. It was extremely difficult to obtain them. However, no one had ever heard of anyone who could create the will of the universe. At least, as far as Wang Feng knew, there was no such thing. Wang Feng didn't know if there was a God system in the universe, and he had never asked. However, if the primordial chaos origin could deduce a new will of the universe based on the information it had gathered, it would definitely allow him to reach a higher level. His strength would also enter a brand new world. Therefore, in the future, Wang Feng would definitely have to rely on the primordial origin to make further progress. And now, the will of the Pangu axe was one of his strongest powers. His palm felt the familiar aura of the Pangu axe. The Pangu axe did not have an artifact spirit. To be more precise, the will to split open the heavens was a life form of the highest dimension. The will of the universe was a level of power that ordinary life forms could not imagine. It could easily destroy a unit universe and shatter all the rules of the universe. Even Su Fan, who was an immortal venerable in his previous life, found it hard to imagine how terrifying this power was. Moreover, this kind of willpower, it was not something that could be used just because one obtained it. He still needed comprehension and compatibility. Ever since Wang Feng obtained the Pangu axe martial soul, every time he used it, he would gain comprehension and increase compatibility with the will of the Pangu axe that was still in a broken state. Until he reached the dark demon world in the divine world. When he entered the spirit realm, he once again repaired the Pangu axe martial soul. The real repair required a period of nurturing. Only now could he use it. Wang Feng even felt that with his current strength, he could not fully unleash the power of the will of the Pangu Axe martial soul. He could only use it normally. However, even so, it was enough. The instant before he held the Pangu Axe in his hand, Wang Feng's divine figure changed. It was as if divine light from the 9 heavens had descended. Rumble! Under that incomparably terrifying aura, the entire deity realm was directly split into 2. The light shield formed by the 10 origins flowing in the sky disintegrated in an instant. Then, the aura of the axe light did not diminish. It instantly charged toward Di Tianxian. The will of splitting open the heavens and earth was a terrifying power that could make the universe tremble. With his full strength, Wang Feng's current state was even stronger than when he faced Yuan. Di Tianxian looked at the axe light that was coming toward him. He seemed to be in a daze. When it got closer, he suddenly shouted with a tearing voice, "Will of the Emperor Annihilation!" The purple scythe in his hand suddenly turned into a ray of purple divine light. The brilliant divine aura seemed to be unparalleled in the world. It enveloped Di Tianxian's entire body. The divine statue behind him let out a fierce roar. Almost immediately, it entered Di Tianxian's body. In an instant, Di Tianxian seemed to emit the divine aura of a supreme true emperor of the ancient universe. It seemed to be able to make everything fall under the extremely dim purple scythe light. In the next moment, the axe light chopped down. Suddenly, the heavens and earth collapsed. The spirit realm shattered. Cracks appeared in every corner of the spirit realm. Su Fan looked at this scene in horror. The space around him was instantly shattered into pieces. The color of the void, dark and gray, appeared in every corner of the spirit realm. This spirit realm is shattered. Su Fan took a deep breath. The aftershock came. He could feel the aura of death. At the same time, he looked out of the corner of his eyes. He could only see countless lives and countless clan members in the spirit realm. The power of faith that was generated from the prayers, or the clan members that were guarding the palace in the distance, all of their bodies stiffened at this moment. Then, they quickly lost all signs of life. At this moment, a ray of divine light came from the west and enveloped Su Fan. It barely resisted the terrifying aftershock. "Master!" Su Fan suddenly looked at his master on the other side. He found that his master looked lifeless like a statue. It was as if he had lost all signs of life. He gritted his teeth and flew over. The spirit realm shattered. Countless power of the laws disappeared in an instant. At this moment, Su Fan no longer had the pressure of carrying a mountain on his back. Instead, he was incomparably relaxed. Of course, he knew that it was because the ancestor god still cared about him. Otherwise, without the protective divine light that suddenly descended, he might have been gone. The aftershock of the battle was not something that he could imagine. Su Fan walked to his master's side. He used the protective divine light on his body to protect his master. He sighed softly. Then, he looked at the sky, at the center of the light that was like the explosion of the sun. With his current strength, he couldn't tell what was going on. He could not see anything at all. It was too terrifying. This power, after an unknown period of time, Su Fan suddenly felt his master move. Then, a slightly trembling and weak voice sounded. "Little Fan?" Hearing this voice, Su Fan did not look at his master. Instead, he suddenly looked at the sky. Chapter 1886. Master had awakened. This meant that there was only one possibility. Di Tianxian had been defeated. In fact, Su Fan felt that his breathing had become faster than ever. In the sky, cloud shadow universe light was everywhere. Everything was blurry. He couldn't see what was going on at all. A powerful force was tearing apart the dimension of this god domain. The god domain had completely collapsed. Only the remnant images were scattered in every corner like a painting. Suddenly, drops of eye-catching blood droplets fell from the sky. Then, like a heavy downpour, is that blood? Su Fan felt that the blood droplets contained a terrifying energy that seemed to be able to destroy everything. He didn't know whose blood it was. At this moment, somewhere in this shattered god domain. It seems that Ling Yuan didn't make him use all his strength last time. He is much stronger than the guy I met at that place. A low voice echoed in the shadows. There are not many people in the God System universe who can grow at such a speed. Plus, every time he attacks, he uses this item. That will. It seems that I'm right. The Emperor God faction has been too active recently. I hope that I can teach them a lesson this time. The murmurs in the shadows were unknown to others. There were only two pairs of eyes staring at the scene of Cloud Shadow Universe light in front of them. Wang Feng's divine shadow was shining brightly. Around him, dozens of light sources were shining. Pangu Axe was slightly dimmer. However, the divine power was still there. Di Tianxian's divine shadow was completely weakened. The huge divine statue that had merged with his back had reappeared. The originally bright light of faith had also dimmed. The purple gold scythe had also shattered into pieces and scattered in the shattered void. The divine blood was flowing rapidly along with the divine shadow. Wang Feng shook his head slightly. This god was able to take a hit from his Pangu axe head-on without dying. He was considered a strong expert. If he didn't have the true will of the universe, he would have disappeared completely. As for this god domain, it was completely shattered by the remnant waves just now. The god domain of a god should be extremely sturdy. Naturally, it should be many times sturdier than those big worlds and unit universes. However, when the two universes collided, it was still shattered like glass. Of course, most of the remnant waves were created by Panguak. For a heavenly god, the shattering of a deity's domain was not fatal. As long as the will of the universe was still there, the divine dominion could still be rebuilt. However, this might be the end of it. As for the will of the universe, Wang Feng narrowed his eyes. The strength of this heavenly god was indeed very strong. His will of the universe had fused with the purple side. Although the side was easily shattered, it was still very powerful. However, the powerful will of the universe did not shatter. Clearly, this heavenly god not only possessed the true will of the universe, but he had also passed the initial wheel Ian. Unfortunately, although it did not shatter, it was not far from shattering. Wang Feng looked at another part of the void. There seemed to be nothing there. However, Wang Feng could faintly sense a unique fluctuation of life. It wasn't a life spawn of this god realm, nor was it Su Fan or his master. Instead, it was another life. It definitely had nothing to do with the god domain. That was because most of the life spawns related to the god realm had been wiped out in the aftermath just now. It turned into nothingness. It doesn't feel good to be treated as a knife, right? Wang Feng looked at Di Tianxian and sneered. Do you understand the strength of this native heavenly god now? Di Tianxian's figure was ethereal, as if it would dissipate at any time. However, upon closer inspection, it was still frozen. You know your situation? Di Tianxian looked at Wang Feng coldly. You're not going to make a move? Of course, he knew that he was being treated as a knife. However, he was willing to do so. In fact, when he invaded that immortal Dao civilization, all life should have been subdued or directly destroyed. However, he missed out on Su Fan. With his strength at that time, he was a fish that escaped from the long river of time in the immortal Dao civilization. How could he not know? With his strength, if he wanted to enter the long river of time in the unit universe to sense the history of all civilizations in the universe, no life would be able to escape his senses. However, this fish seemed to be a little special. He originally wanted to stop it, but later on, he ignored it. Because from then on, he finally had a chance to communicate with that person in the shadows. If not for that person's orders, Even if Su Fan's soul came back to life after being hit by that giant spirit dragon, he would not be able to hide from Di Tianxin's senses. How would he have the chance to escape? And now, the scene before him, no, to be precise, he had already expected this from the moment Su Fan came to the divine realm. He did not know what that person was plotting, but he could be used by the other party. This was an honor and a possibility. You are a heavenly god after all. Wang Feng frowned slightly and looked at him. Why would you be used by someone who does not even dare to show his face? Why are you doing this? Tell me. If you can surprise me, I will spare your life. I will not take your universe's will. Don't use your god system's rules to suppress me. I will not fall for it. If I kill you, the huge god system's universe will only lose an elite. However, the god system's universe will not deal with me directly because of this. Moreover, you guys are the ones who schemed against me first. Di Tianxin fell silent. This native heavenly god clearly had a clear understanding of himself. The battle of the gods had caused a huge commotion in the divine world. Even if the other party was not from the god system's universe, he definitely had a channel in the god system's universe. After all, native heavenly gods were a group in the god system's universe. It was not impossible for him to know the general situation in the god system's universe. However, only he would know if it was worth it. Di Tianxin closed his eyes. He did not seem to want to say another word. You have backbone. Seeing this, Wang Feng shook the Pangu axe in his hand and chopped down at Di Tianxin once again. Just as the axe light landed on Di Tianxin's head, Di Tianxin suddenly opened his eyes and snorted coldly. What's the harm in telling you? Wang Feng's figure paused, and the axe light gradually disappeared. It was as if nothing had happened. He was not sure if this fellow really had backbone. It was just that, therefore, he was just putting on an act just now. Of course, if the other party really did not have any intention of telling him, then, the act would become the real thing. It's very simple, Di Tianxin said indifferently. She is the origin god of the 5 ancient god systems in the god systems universe. The 5 ancient god systems represent the 5 categories of the god systems universe. The origin gods are the inheritors of the purest god blood among the 5 ancient god systems. Wang Feng nodded. That was right. It matched what Yan Qingjue said. Why does she want to deal with me? Wang Feng looked at the void in the distance and continued asking. Chapter 1887. I don't know about that. Di Tianxin coughed a few times and slowly sucked the dripping god blood back from the void. The 5 ancient god systems control the god system universe. Their vastness permeates into every corner of the god system universe. This god is only from the imperial god system. There is too much of a difference in seniority between them and the 5 ancient divine systems. Even the number 1 overgod in our pantheon might not be qualified to face her directly. To be able to be used by her is already a great honor in itself. Wang Feng could clearly see a trace of pride on Di Tianxin's face. He was silent for a moment. He shook his head, turned around, and waved his hand at Su Fan. I'm rather surprised by what you've said. Since that's the case, you can keep your dog life. Wang Feng's palm moved slightly, and the axe light tore through the void, bringing Su Fan and the other person away from this place. He didn't finish his words. Di Tianxin's words weren't lies. That shadow must be spying in the dark as well. In fact, it was even possible that Di Tianxin's words were all planned by the other party. What Wang Feng didn't expect was that this wasn't the first time. He thought of the abyss last time, Su Fan's background, and so on. This mysterious deity who had once stayed in the soul realm of the dark demon realm for a while actually had such a great origin. But what made Wang Feng feel uneasy was that this guy seemed to be interested in him. It gave Wang Feng the illusion that he was being watched. This was not a good thing. It was different from the war of gods in the god system universe. It was obvious that they were targeting you in secret. Looks like I have to go back and make some preparations. Although the number of members in the chat group is far from enough, the universe that they spawn can provide a lot of faith power. In addition to the amplification from the primal chaos green lotus. Perhaps I should be quiet for a while. By the time the ancestral realm's 9 paths reincarnation is established, the war of the deities will be near. That guy shouldn't be thinking about dealing with me anymore. The 5 great ancient god systems. Ancient god system. I wonder how much the Crimson Divine Fox Emperor knows. This god is already so powerful, but he still refuses to breathe a word about the 5 ancient divine systems. Even the overgods aren't qualified to face that fellow directly. Wang Feng was not sure how far he could go in the divine system universe. Not long after Wang Feng left, Di Tianxin's divine shadow immediately bowed slightly. I have committed a grave mistake by revealing your identity and secret. I deserve death. The shadow's drawn-out voice suddenly rang out. Heavenly God Di, you are rather interesting. Since he already knew that he deserved death, then why did he say it just now? Regardless of whether he spoke or not, he would still die. Yet, you have to say it out loud. It seems like you have a grudge against me? Is it difficult for you to be my saber? Di Tianxin instantly knelt down in fear and said, That's not the case. What does that mean? Di Tianxin immediately raised his head, and there was a tinge of arrogance in his tone. I am a god of the Emperor God System and a member of the God System universe. How could he die at the hands of a native heavenly god? That was absolutely impossible. Therefore, even if I have to reveal some of your Highness's identity, I only want to die in your Highness's hands. Even if I'm not qualified to die in your hands, I won't be killed by a native heavenly god. The shadow in the shadows shook his head slightly. Di Tianxin's words were filled with sincerity. He truly did not want to be killed by that fellow. That was no longer as simple as death. Instead, it was humiliation. It's quite a pity for you to die just like that, the shadow said. Now that your divine domain is broken, your originally weak strength is even more unsightly. However, you are still a heavenly god with the will of the universe. Your Emperor God system treats the face of a god as more important than your own life. How about this? Go and do one more thing. I will help you restore your divine domain. Not only will your strength recover, but I will also help you restore your strength. The next time you face this native heavenly god, I will also allow you to defeat him. What do you think? When Di Tianxin heard this, he was stunned. He could not help but ask, Your Highness, the strength of this native heavenly god is extraordinary. Although I am a god of the Emperor God system and have fought with him personally, I still know my own strength. Even if my strength reaches its peak state again, I will not be a match for him. I am still aware of this. Your Highness has already done me a great favor by helping me restore my divine domain. The shadow suddenly waved out a shadow fog and interrupted Di Tianxin's words. Do you think that I can't do what I say? That's not it, Di Tianxin hurriedly said. It's just that native heavenly god is really quite powerful. Among all the heavenly gods in the entire god system universe, there are only a few who can fight with him. Perhaps there are only a few of them. I do not dare to ask for more. So, you are afraid after just one fight. The shadow seemed to have understood something. He could not help but sneer. If that's the case, you should have said so earlier. You are so useless. This blade of yours only looks sharp. It is very blunt when used. No wonder it is so weak. You are not even afraid of death. Why are you afraid of this? Di Tianxin's expression started to change. Normally, it was very difficult for a god to have any changes in their emotions. However, that was only true for their clan members, because they were high and mighty gods who controlled all living things in the universe. However, in front of this person, Di Tianxian could not maintain that kind of divinity. Then, since that is the case, Di Tianxian took a deep breath. Your Highness, what do you want me to do? Tell me. A few soft laughter sounded from the shadow. Do you know about the native heavenly gods? The shadow asked. Of course I do. Di Tianxian was slightly stunned. Who would not know about this? What I mean is... The shadow paused for a moment. Then, he slowly said, the galaxy where the native heavenly gods are located. Di Tianxian was stunned again. You are talking about the galaxies in the 8 Desolates? That's right, the shadow said calmly. All the native heavenly gods in the God System universe are in that galaxy. This information is rather unique in the God System universe. The 5 great ancient God systems have all sent gods to secretly infiltrate the God System universe. However, the results are mediocre. However, recently, the 8 Desolates seem to have sent news about a remnant of the will of the previous primordial era. It is possible that the hidden will of the universe will be born. Once the native heavenly gods obtain the power of the universe's will, you should also understand. Their strength will increase tremendously. The native heavenly gods have already gathered a large group of new generation experts. They plan to explore this remnant. However, on the side of our God System universe, the 5 great ancient God systems are unable to infiltrate. They do not understand the storyline of this remnant at all. Hearing this, Di Tianxian seemed to have understood something. However, he frowned and asked, Your Highness, the remnant that even the 5 great ancient God systems are unable to infiltrate. Could it be that you want me to give it a try? You are thinking too much, the shadow said. You can't even enter the 8 Desolates, let alone the remnant. Di Tianxian. What I want you to do is another thing, the shadow said slowly. Go and intercept the various geniuses that the native heavenly gods have gathered from their universe and are planning to send into the remnant. Now that your divine domain has been destroyed, you only need to disguise yourself slightly. Then you will be able to easily blend in with these geniuses. Of course, even so, you will not be able to escape from the interception of those galaxies in the 8 Desolates. However, if you can blend in with these geniuses and take away a few of them, it will not be a problem. Di Tianxian was slightly enlightened. So this is the request. It is not simple, however. Chapter 1888. Ancestral Realm. Su Fan's return caused a huge commotion among the members of the chat group. Although there weren't many members in the chat group, they still had some friendships with each other. In addition, they were all believers of the ancestral god. They could communicate with each other about the cultures of the various worlds and strengthen their friendship. Also, it was very strange for a group member to suddenly disappear. At this moment in the chat group, Li Feiyu, Brother Su, you are finally back. Your icon has dimmed for a long time. Back then, we came in together. You and your sudden disappearance made me very anxious. Hanli was indeed quite desolate. Anyone would panic when a person suddenly disappeared. Moreover, they were the first batch to enter the chat group. Fan Yi, Big Brother Immortal Sovereign, where did you go? You missed out on the Dragon God Realms event. You suffered a huge loss. We are all rich people with 1,000,000 points now. Are you envious? Eternal Peace Pawn Shop's worker. Did you encounter any difficulties? If you have any difficulties, just tell us. We are in the same group. We are all believers of the ancestral god. It is only right for us to help each other. Handshake. JPG. 2 She Ancient Emperor Jade. Aya, don't send messages anymore. Let him prepare and talk. Ghostly, that's right. He disappeared for so long. Something important must have happened to him. If it is not convenient to talk about it, there is no need to say it. Seeing this scene, Su Fan couldn't help but sigh. With a smile, he recounted everything that had happened. He told them the details of what happened in his previous life, what happened to that god, how his master was taken away, how his soul luckily escaped, and how he was reborn. Now that he had found his master, he could cultivate in peace and pursue the supreme great Tao. And in the future, these group members would definitely not be existences that did not belong to him. He told them everything from the bottom of his heart. After everyone heard it, they also sighed. Fan Yi, so that protective divine light is actually so powerful? From what you said, the strength of that god is simply beyond your imagination. You were a venerable immortal in your previous life. You can't imagine how strong that god is. The protective divine light bestowed by the ancestor god allowed you to keep your life under such circumstances. The two ancient emperors, Jade said. Woo woo. Big brother Su Fan, you are truly infatuated. I remember that after you were reborn, you exchanged a few points from the ancestor god. The first treasure that you exchanged for was that eternal tracing sand. So it was because you wanted to know more about your master. Moreover, even though you know that it's basically impossible for you to come back alive after going to that god's divine realm, you still want to meet your master. Yangon Pon, are those gods so powerful? Wouldn't they be able to destroy our world with a wave of their hand? How terrifying! Wouldn't it be the same as being completely brainwashed to become the minion of those gods? Even your teacher couldn't resist it. He could only obey the god's orders to kill you. Ghostly, letting two beloved ones kill the latter. Actually, it's not just this god. Anyway, those high and mighty experts like to play this kind of childish and cruel trick. Li Feiyu, I forgot about the divine protective light. In that case, I have a set of life-saving talismans? I'm almost at the Tao integration stage. I don't intend to use this divine protective light easily. Su Fan, the divine protective light is automatically activated when it senses that you are in mortal danger. We can't control it. However, the strength of the ancestor god this time has indeed refreshed my understanding once again. When everyone heard this, their eyes instantly lit up. They had only listened to Su Fan's narration. In fact, it wasn't very detailed, especially the battle process. It was simply impossible to describe it with words or word. However, if Su Fan had a video recording at that time, it might not be so. Su Fan, I'm sorry. In that situation, I couldn't use the recording function of the chat group at all. Therefore, I didn't record the battle between the ancestor god and that god completely. It's very difficult for you to see it with your own eyes. There's really no other way. In that kind of battle, the divine realm would shatter, the void would tremble, and all the laws and great Daos would be shattered into pieces. Even a little bit of the aftermath of the battle could easily destroy me. Everyone instantly felt regretful. However, at this moment, Su Fan continued, although I couldn't record the battle process. However, because I had the divine protective light that the ancestor god gave me at that time, I was barely able to withstand the aftermath of the battle and was able to move a little. Therefore, I recorded a shorter video. However, that's a video of the battle. Fan Yi, I want to see it too. Soundbreak. JPG. Yong and Pawn Shop's employee. Me too. Everyone, hurry up and send it up. Su Fan smiled and uploaded the video of the battle to the chat group. It was a video of the battle after the battle. It was a video of the ancestor god looking down at the shattered divine realm. His entire body exuded a terrifying aura that seemed capable of killing gods and emperors. In the shattered divine realm, there was a god prostrating in the clouds, dripping with blood. Even if there was no video and it was just a picture, it still made everyone's blood boil. It was as if they had personally experienced that battle. Fan Yi, good. In the future, I want to be as awesome as the ancestor god. Not only is the ancestor god my belief, but he is also my idol. Yong and Pawn Shop's employee. Although it's a video, the aura emitted by the entire heaven and earth made me unable to breathe just by looking at it. I don't know the situation back then, ghostly. The shattered world, the great Tao that has perished, there is no aura of life in the heaven and earth. Also, the endless starry sky outside the void is all shattered. It's too terrifying. Although the aftermath of the battle was in Di Tianxian's divine realm, the divine realm of a god was originally a powerful plane that existed in the multiverse. Outside the plane, it was naturally the nebula of the Emperor God system. In fact, it wasn't just Di Tianxian's divine realm that was shattered. The nebula of the Emperor God system was also shattered. However, the laws of the God system were very powerful. The laws of Di Tianxian's divine realm were destroyed. However, the laws of the God system's universe were still present. The star region where the Emperor God system was located still had the powerful laws of the universe reinforced by the Supreme God. It was impossible for it to be shattered so easily. Therefore, the aftermath of the battle between Wang Feng and Di Tianxian only affected a small area of that star region. However, if one looked at it from the perspective of the divine realm, the entire starry sky seemed to have shattered. In fact, it wasn't that exaggerated, too. She ancient Emperor Jade. You? Forget it. It's already not bad if you have 1/3 of the ancestor god's strength. Yong'an Pawn Shop's employee. Hey, who doesn't have a dream, right? Old brother Fanyi? Sky Eyes. JPG. Ghostly. If the ancestor god knew about this, he would be very pleased. FPZW. Chapter 1889. Li Feiyu. Of course the ancestor god is different. However, I feel that with our current aptitudes, it will take us a long time to reach the ancestor god's level. Can't let me down. Just think about it. The ancestor god's level is far beyond our imagination. Borrow 10,000 years from the heavens. As long as we can do the best we can and not embarrass the ancestor god. Fan Yi. Brother Ying's words are reasonable. At this moment, the ancestor god, you don't have to look down on yourselves. Since you can become my believers, I know your potential. All of you have the aptitude to reach my level. Wang Feng really couldn't stand these guys bragging here. To be honest, Wang Feng didn't feel anything when these guys were bragging. He might as well motivate them. Let their strength increase faster. Fan Yi, damn, the ancestor god is here. Ha, Xiao Yu, look, the ancestor god said that we all have the aptitude. It's just a matter of time. Indeed, the ancestor god is the ancestor god. You're so small and not like women. We are the people chosen by the ancestor god. All of you have to be more confident. Ancient. JPG. Yong'an Pawn Shop's worker. I feel that my blood is boiling. Let's not talk about it anymore. I'm going to cultivate. Wang Feng using his identity as the ancestor god to motivate them was naturally effective. Even Wang Feng himself could feel that their power of faith had increased by a lot. When they were in the Dragon God World's event dungeon, their power of faith had also increased by a lot. But at that time it was more crucial. Wang Feng didn't expect that his power of faith would increase by a lot just by saying a few words. He shook his head and thought for a while. Then, he realized that it might be because of the video uploaded by Su Fan. It allowed these guys to reach a higher level of power. So, their hearts were filled with respect and reverence. Otherwise, just saying a few words wouldn't be able to increase their power of faith so much. In the primitive universe, the power of faith is the power of wishes. The divine Tao of the primitive universe should be somewhat similar to the civilization system of the God system universe. The divine Tao was where the gods in the heavens opened temples in the mortal world to enjoy the incense and gather the power of wishes of all living beings. They could also cultivate to the highest level. Thinking of this, Wang Fengxin's heart skipped a beat. There were too many things to study in the prehistoric space civilization. However, Wang Feng did not know much about it. He had only inherited 3 treasures left behind by the primitive universe civilization. Since it was incomplete, it naturally could not contain the information of the entire primeval civilization. It's about time. The 5th path of reincarnation should have been established. This time, it should be the path of ghost, Wang Feng pondered. After this period of time, the body of faith and the Chaos Green Lotus had stored a large amount of faith power. At the very least, it was enough to establish 2 reincarnations. The reason for establishing the ghost path was that the ancestral realm had begun to produce a large number of living beings. This was especially true for the human race, which had a strong reproductive ability. Once there were a large number of living beings, it was natural that there would be internal or external conflicts between the races. Begin to die. Although they all had their own reincarnation system. However, as long as there was life, as long as there was death, there would be a large amount of negative energy. The so-called negative energy referred to the resentment produced by the resentment of the dead. The ancestral realm's energy could be automatically purified. However, if a large amount of resentment was produced, it would easily cause a great change in the world, and the heavenly Tao would be flawed. At that time, even Yen Mengyao, the heavenly Tao, would suffer some irreversible injuries. Even Wang Feng's body of faith would be somewhat affected. However, that would be the worst-case scenario. Since Wang Feng had already thought of it, he would naturally think of a way to prevent it from happening. The way was the path of ghost reincarnation. After a living being died, if it was unwilling to be like its own soul, it would produce a large amount of negative energy in the world. It would affect the balance of the world. Naturally, the ancestral realm would not be affected like this. That was because it was not the time yet. However, such a situation already existed. Therefore, the path of ghost should be established. The ghost race was not the kind of race that needed to absorb the negative energy in the world to cultivate. On the contrary, in Wang Feng's setting, the ghost race was a life form that was specifically responsible for purifying the negative energy in the world. They shouldered their own mission. Therefore, the ghost race was particularly important. Because of the sufficient faith power, the path of ghost reincarnation was easily established. It was rare for the ghost race to exist. It took Wang Feng a lot of effort to create the ghost race. First of all, to be able to purify the negative energy meant that they must have an extremely pure physique. For this physique, Wang Feng used the red lotus of karmic fire to select the living soil needed for the physical body. He added several heavenly and earthly treasures in succession and tempered it. Only then could it be completely created. This physical body was as pure as snow. There was not a trace of impurities. It had a completely different skin quality and color from the human race. At the same time, to purify the negative energy, one would have to deal with all kinds of dead souls. Therefore, one must have a pair of eyes, to be able to see through the boundary between reality and illusion. To be able to sense where the wandering souls in the ancestral realm were. Therefore, they had to have a third eye. After the physical body was designed, the next step was to choose the soul. The soul of the ghost race naturally had to be tempered by the karmic fire. It needed to have a pure and only mind. Otherwise, there would be impurities. Otherwise, it would be impossible to purify the negative energy in the world. After dealing with all of this, the ghost race was quietly born. At this time, there were already many wandering souls in the ancestral realm who were unwilling to step into the cycle of reincarnation. In the cycle of heavenly Tao, as long as there was a battle between living beings, there would naturally be endless death. Even if there was no battle, there would still be beings of various races who died because their lifespans were nearing the end. The ancestral realm was still fine for now. There weren't many of these wandering souls, but as the timeline changed for tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years, then, who knew how many of these wandering souls would be born and how much negative energy would be produced? Back in the Douluo divine world, the gods were trapped in the same place because they couldn't step into a higher realm. Who knew how much negative energy was produced? It was easy to imagine how much negative energy the gods produced. In the end, they had no choice but to seal the negative energy away. Only after that did Long Xie enter the seal and absorb all the negative energy. The ghost race should be the most low-key of these middle races, Wang Feng sighed softly. Their mission was not only to purify the negative energy in the world, but also to guide the wandering souls in the world to the right path. Because they had a mission, they naturally couldn't be born in the ancestral realm with a bang. After all, there were already many wandering souls in the ancestral realm who were unwilling to enter the cycle of reincarnation. FPZW. Chapter 1890. The ghost race had perfected the ecology of the ancestral realm. With the ghost race's arrival, the other reincarnations could operate more normally. However, the responsibility and mission of the ghost race was given by Wang Feng. However, the development of life was often unique. Wang Feng could not predict what the ghost race's life would be like after countless years. Now, there were already 6 reincarnations of the 9 paths of reincarnation. The ancestral realm looked like it had some form. The remaining 3 paths of reincarnation were the divine path, the yin-yang path, and the heavenly path. Wang Fengxin already had an idea. Half of the war of the gods has passed. After the remaining 3 paths of reincarnation are established, the ancestral realm will be considered complete. Next, it only needs to enter a long period of development. The power of faith will gather continuously. Everything was on the right track. This made Wang Feng feel gratified. At this moment, he was roaming the land of the ancestral realm. He felt that the energy of heaven and earth in the ancestral realm was getting purer and purer. Naturally, he felt satisfied. The chat group has not had any new members for some time. However, the source of the power of faith is stable now. More members will just speed up the process. Even with the current speed, the ancestral realm will be able to develop to a higher level before the war of the god. Powerful beings will definitely be born one after another. This was inevitable. Even now, the humans, the monster race, the Azure race, and the others, the connate lifeforms that Wang Feng had created at the beginning had already reached an extremely high level. Especially the Azure race, which was very powerful at birth. Although their reproduction rate was low, they were the first batch of powerful beings. When they were created, they could already fight with the gods' descendant. Their potential and strength were unparalleled. The humans had a large population. Although they were weak at birth back then, Wang Feng had deduced and deepened the 9 volumes of the Book of Ian based on the Heavenly Book. They had powerful cultivation method. They did not lack the great path. The monster race was even more powerful. The birth of the monster race and the path of reincarnation were compiled by Wang Feng using the race genes contained in the pictures of the billions of beings in the primordial world. They had the bloodlines of the billions of monster race in the primordial world. However, they needed to awaken on their own. Basically, as long as they entered the monster race's reincarnation, they would be randomly assigned one of the billions of monster race patterns. The monster race that Wang Feng had created at the beginning were the most powerful ones. Those dragons were one of them. Dragon Clan. When he thought of this, Wang Fengxin thought, the 10,000 Dragon Pearl in the 10,000 Dragons universe contains the power of the great Tao that the Jade Plate of Good Fortune needs. Perhaps there are more 10,000 Dragon Pearls in the 10,000 Dragons universe. Or perhaps there are treasures similar to the 10,000 Dragon Pearls. The power of the great Tao contained in them should be able to repair the Jade Plate of Good Fortune. As long as the 10,000 Dragons universe had the power of the Great Path, then the creation Jade Disc would be able to sense it. Should I make a trip to the 10,000 Dragons universe? Wang Fengxin's heart stirred. Just as he was thinking, Suddenly, a distant voice transmission entered Wang Feng's mind. "I've finished studying the fragment of will you gave me." Hearing this voice, Wang Fengxin was slightly shocked. "It's Carl." Wang Feng didn't expect that Carl would still be able to contact him at this time. Back then, he had given him a fragment of the galaxy will, hoping that this great scientist of the super-godly universe would be able to study the mysteries of the galaxy will through this fragment. From there, he would be able to find the main body of Mo Tiance. Speaking of this Mo Tiance, Wang Feng felt that this guy was quite powerful. Back then, after the clone was killed, he thought that he would be able to quickly find this guy's main body. In the end, Wang Feng used the primordial origin to deduce the galaxy will. He didn't manage to deduce anything. He simply couldn't deduce this guy's exact location. Later, he gave the fragment to Carl. Firstly, he hoped that Carl would be able to find something. Secondly, it was interesting. The last time this guy contacted him, it was because of the blood spirit god. However, the blood spirit god had lured him into his shattered god domain and called 2 helpers to deal with him. In the end, even the origin was taken away by him. His strength had greatly decreased. The deity seal on Carl's body had most likely disappeared. Wang Feng didn't contact him much after that, but that fragment of will was still with him. Now that he sent a message, interesting. It seems that this guy really managed to find something? Wang Feng pondered. "Where are you? Send me your coordinates." Wang Feng transmitted. "In a place very far away. After that god was defeated by you, the deity seal on my body disappeared. At the same time, some of the other clans of that god disappeared, and some were exiled. Once the deity seal of a god disappears, if no other god accepts it, they will be exiled. They are exiled in the universe. Only those with good aptitudes will be absorbed into the god realms of other god." Wang Feng didn't know this. "With your aptitude, logically speaking, it's not bad. Could it be that no other god took a fancy to you?" "No. So, I was exiled. Clans that no other god needs will be sent to the other universes below, and their life and death are up to the heavens." Wang Fengxin's heart moved slightly. "I can return to the universe I was in before. But the special fragment you gave me made me not want to go back. That's because I saw a wider world from the fragment. After that god's god domain was shattered, I came to a small universe and began to study the power contained in this fragment with the knowledge and power I knew. Until now, I seem to have found something." "What is it?" Wang Feng asked. He was curious about what this guy could find out from the fragment of the will of the universe. In fact, he didn't need to ask, because he had already studied the fragment through the origin of the primordial universe. It's a power that can overturn the universe. However, this power is incomplete. Fortunately, I was able to analyze a few pieces of information through this fragment. These pieces of information seem to represent a specific location. There are 3 in total. I have arrived at one of them, and I found this fragment. This fragment has the same power." Hearing this, Wang Fengxin's heart moved. There was a fragment of the will of the galaxy? The will of the galaxy belonged to Mo Tiance. If Carl could find the second will fragment, it must have come from Mo Tiance. It seems that Mo Tiance is finally willing to show himself? "Where are you now?" Wang Feng asked. "You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.